toll. My work combating sex trafficking goes back to my first days as First Lady. I worked to pass the first federal legislation against trafficking and was proud that my husband signed the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, which increased support for survivors and gave prosecutors better tools for going after traffickers. As Secretary of State, I appointed a former federal prosecutor to ramp up our global anti-trafficking efforts. I oversaw nearly 170 anti-trafficking programs in 70 nations and directly pressed foreign leaders to crack down on trafficking networks in their countries. Every year, we published a global report to shine a light on abuses. The findings of those reports triggered sanctions on countries failing to make progress, so they became a powerful diplomatic tool to drive concrete action. I insisted that the United States be included in the report for the first time ever back in 2011 because we must hold ourselves not just the same standard as the rest of the world, but to an even higher one. Sex trafficking and modern slavery should have no place in America. None. The Secretary Clinton's opening statement continues, saying the Trump administration gutted the trafficking in persons office at the State Department, cutting more than 70% of the career civil and foreign service experts who worked so hard to prevent trafficking crimes. The annual trafficking report required by law was delayed for months. The message from the Trump administration to the American people and the world could not be clearer. Combating human trafficking is no longer an American priority under the Trump White House. This is a tragedy. It's a scandal. It deserves vigorous investigation and oversight. A committee endeavoring to stopping human trafficking would seek to understand what specific steps are needed to fix a system that allowed Epstein to get away with his crimes back in 2008. A committee run by elected officials with a commitment to transparency would ensure the full release of all the files. It would ensure that the lawful redactions of those files protected the victims and survivors, not powerful men and political allies. It would go and get to the bottom of reports that DOJ withheld FBI interviews in which a survivor accuses President Trump of heinous crimes. It would subpoena anyone who asked on which night there would be the wildest party on Epstein's island. It would demand testimony from prosecutors in Florida and New York about why they gave Epstein a sweetheart deal and chose not to pursue others who may have been implicated. It would demand that Secretary Rubio and Attorney General Bondi testify about why this administration is abandoning survivors and playing into the hands of traffickers. It would seek out officers not on the front lines of the fight and ask them what support they need.
Melania Trump is being haunted by the Epstein files in federal court.
And force the administration to act. But that's not happening. Instead, you have compelled me to testify, fully aware that I have no knowledge that would assist you in the investigation in order to
she has no knowledge, she says.
Trump's actions and to cover them up despite legitimate calls for answers.
So
if this committee is serious about learning the truth about Epstein's trafficking crimes, it would not rely on press gaggles to get answers from our current president on his involvement. It would ask him directly under oath about the tens of thousands of times he showed up in the Epstein files. If the majority was serious, it would not waste time on fishing expeditions. There's too much that needs to be done. What is being held back, who is being protected, and why the cover-up? My challenge to you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, is the same challenge I put to myself throughout my long service in this nation. How to be worthy of the trust of the American people has given you. They expect statesmanship, not gamesmanship, leading, not grandstanding. They expect you to use your power to get to the truth and to do more to help survivors of Epstein's crimes, as well as the millions more who are victims of sex trafficking. Again, that was the 4-page Secretary Clinton's opening statement that you just read to the committee just moments ago. And again, we are waiting for more key updates coming.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Robert Garcia. I'm the ranking member for the Oversight Democrats. We're here today, of course, for 2 days of depositions of both Secretary Clinton and former President Bill Clinton. So I'm going to have some general comments. We will actually be back out here to answer any questions once we've actually started the depositions, but we wanted to make some brief comments right now, and then we'll go ahead and go in and start. Let me just begin by saying that Oversight Democrats, from day one, we have said that we want to talk to anyone, any person with information about Jeffrey Epstein, about his crimes, about how he was able to get so much wealth. We will talk to any single person.
That we want to talk to anyone, any person with information about Jeffrey Epstein, about his crimes, about how he was able to get so much wealth. We will talk to any single person, whether that is a Democrat, a Republican, how much wealth they have, how powerful their position is. We want to talk to anyone. So we're happy to be here, and we're glad that both Secretary Clinton and former President Clinton are willing to talk to this committee. I also think it's important to note, I'm glad to see that we have our Republican colleagues here. As a big group of them. I wish they would have joined us at the Les Wexner deposition, but I'm glad that they're here now to get questions answered. That is an important part of our investigation. Let me just add that as it relates to Secretary Clinton, who's here today, she has been very clear. She's never met Jeffrey Epstein. We have no evidence of her having any interactions with Mr. Epstein. And so I think that's important to note as we walk into this deposition. But I also want to say, which I think is very important, that at this very moment, the Department of Justice continues to lead a White House cover-up. And we're going to be demanding, even over these next few days, that the remaining files that have not been released get released to the public. And that includes new files that were just discovered in the last couple days of a survivor that has made serious accusations and allegations against not just Jeffrey Epstein, but also against President Trump, and about abuse that she suffered when she was a minor. We have seen the DOJ files and the archive manifest that clearly shows that the interviews and information around this survivor have been removed and are missing from the DOJ files. Where are these files? Who removed them? Those questions have to be answered. What we have is a survivor that we have verified, that others have verified, and those files are missing. And it's not just those. It's an additional 50% of files that are missing. It is unconscionable, it is illegal, and Pam Bondi and the president need to answer to where those files are. And that's going to continue to drive our work, not just today, but every single day until we get justice for the survivors. I'm going to have some of our members here make a few comments as well. I'll answer that question. So let me go ahead and we're going to answer one or two questions. Let me just also say, I think today also sets a precedent. So I want to be very clear that we have said from day one that we want to talk to former President Bill Clinton. And the other person we want to talk to is current President Donald Trump.
Amen.
So we should be very clear that now that we're going to hear from former President Clinton, I hope that Chairman Comer and the Republicans will join us in demanding that the person who actually appears more times in the files than the former president, who we want to speak with, is President Donald Trump. And so let's get President Trump in front of our committee to answer the questions that are being asked across this country from survivors, from those who have been brutally attacked and raped, sometimes as children. Let's release the files and answer one or two questions. Thank you.
So, should the Clintons have come forward sooner to testify and be deposed in front of the committee? And also, what are the discussions with Republicans about bringing other administration officials like Lutnick, who are mentioned in these files, before law?
We want to hear from Howard Lutnick. Howard Lutnick, of course, said that he stopped communicating with Epstein, our Commerce Secretary, then goes on to visit Epstein's island, communicate with him, go into business with him, all of which was not disclosed. He should not be the Commerce Secretary right now. As it relates to the questions about the location was selected by Republicans. The majority controls where and how these depositions are done. We want to continue hearing from folks.
Just a question. What could they possibly ask Hillary Clinton all day? They've mentioned Maxwell at the wedding. And what questions, you said you're happy to talk to anyone. What questions do you have for Hillary Clinton, given that she said she has no connection?
We're gonna give the secretary an opportunity to clarify any questions that Republicans might have, that we might have. Look, if she has any information that could be helpful to the investigation, we want to hear that. And so we're going to find out here. We'll report back what's actually being asked. But broadly speaking, anyone that has any information, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, we want a nonpartisan investigation, and that's going to include ensuring that President Trump comes before our committee. Yes.
Do you have questions about the Clinton Global Initiative and the fundraising?
There's going to be questions asked about that. So thank you very much. We'll come back out. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Jennifer. Hello.
Make it a morning to remember with a 2 for $5 mix and match deal now at McDonald's. Just imagine a fluffy sausage, egg, and cheese McGriddles nestled in the palm of your right hand and a toasty, savory sausage McMuffin with egg in the other. Now picture paying.
Voted present. And I think that's a statement that this investigation is serious. It is a bipartisan investigation. The American people have a lot of questions. To my knowledge, the Clintons haven't answered very many, if any, questions about their knowledge or involvement with Epstein and Maxwell. Again, no one's accusing at this moment the Clintons of any wrongdoing. They're going to have due process. But we have a lot of questions. And the purpose of the whole investigation is to try to understand
This is
many
a
things
distraction.
about Epstein. How did he accumulate so much wealth? How was he able to surround himself with some of the most powerful men in the world? Was he an asset for our government or any other government? These are the questions that we're going to ask over the next 2 days, and hopefully we'll be able to get some answers. And as always, we're going to release the transcripts. We're going to release the video as soon as everyone has approved it. The normal process in a deposition is the attorneys would have the opportunity to review the transcript and review the video to make sure that there are no errors. And this is going to be a long video because this is going to be a long deposition. Today will be a long deposition, I would assume, and tomorrow will be an even longer deposition. Every member of the Oversight Committee is going to have questions for the Clintons, as well as our trained staff that do nothing but deposition. So after our hour of questioning, we're going to send a couple of members of the Oversight Committee out to be able to give you an update of what's going on and answer some questions. So with that, we'll answer a question or two, and then we'll go back in and get to some.
Mr. Comer, are you concerned that there has been a cover-up of sexual abuse of a minor by President Trump? There are missing FBI records that appear to be.
No, we're looking into the accusation by the NPR. We don't know the answer to that. We know what the administration says. We're still looking to get a definitive answer on that. But look, let's just be realistic here. If you go by a lot of what the Democrats have said, you had Jasmine Crockett accused Lee Zeldin of taking donations from Jeffrey Epstein. It was the wrong Jeffrey Epstein. On the floor and name names of people that he thought were involved in Epstein that weren't even involved. So, sometimes the Democrats on the committee aren't the best investigators. Go ahead, Chad. Yes.
What about the idea, though, that I understand you say that this is different with some of the members or some of the people who were subpoenaed who didn't have this direct contact? Some folks have said it seems like the Clintons are basically on trial here versus people who know more about the, what was going on with Maxwell, what was going on with Epstein, and that this is really kind of dragging them through the mud when there are other witnesses.
Well, let's address that, Chad. The Democrats voted to subpoena the Clintons. The Democrats voted with the Republicans to hold the Clintons in contempt. Mm-hmm. So the Democrats have just as many questions for the Clintons as the Republicans. So this isn't a partisan witch hunt. This was a motion, a bipartisan motion supported by the Democrats.
The full Epstein files.
So I don't think it's any type of being unfair in any way to the Clintons. They've never answered questions, unlike President Trump, who gets questioned every day by just about every one of you about his knowledge or involvement with Epstein. To my knowledge, the Clintons haven't answered very many questions about Epstein. So we'll do one more question. Go ahead.
So in the spirit of bipartisanship, would you then ask the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick to come testify? It seems like he has some information.
That's very possible, and I think I think it's a good possibility that his name will arise in some questioning today.
It'll be on my list, and I have an email I printed off for Hillary to ask about Howard Lutnick today.
Okay.
So,
we're asking again.
Ghislaine Maxwell
and I
was
want to remind everyone,
prosecuted
we've already brought in Alex
under
Acosta and
Biden,
Bill Barr for
and Trump
deposition.
moved her.
That's 2 Republicans in the Trump administration. So this isn't just about Democrats.
Put
This
Trump
is
on
about
there. He's in
anyone
there
that has
more than
any
anybody.
knowledge of Epstein, the investigation.
Bill
I think we
Clinton
all
has not
agree
lied.
The government failed. The government failed the victims.
Lutnick
And
did,
what our role is, we can't prosecute anyone. But what we have been doing is getting transparency to the American people. We subpoenaed
No minor
the estate.
has
That had
said
nothing
that
to do with the discharge
Clinton
petition. We subpoenaed the
raped
documents
her.
for the estate. That's what the victims
Not one
asked us
minor.
to do. And what you're seeing is there is accountability finally happening. You've seen at least a dozen very powerful people, men and women, who
It
have
don't matter
already
who
resigned,
didn't do anything before.
many in disgrace from their
He brought
board
it up
positions. So,
on his
we're seeing
campaign. He needs
accountability,
to
but
honor
we
what he
have,
said. Period,
a desire
Tanya.
to see a lot more accountability. We want to get the answers,
I
and
guess you
hopefully
like
the next 2 days will be a step in the right
children
direction
being
on our investigation.
taken advantage of. Is that what you're saying?
Go ahead. One more, and then
Tanya?
that being said, I mean, Hillary Clinton has said she has no links to Jeffrey Epstein.
None.
She doesn't
It's a
recall
waste of
meeting
time.
him. So
It's
what's
a
the
distraction
specific
from the
information do you
truth.
believe she has that
The
warrants
president
her
is the
testimony?
You'll
PDFer.
see. I mean, we're going to ask a lot of questions, but with respect to when you look at all the co-conspirators, and we've all seen the unredacted documents, Maxwell was the main co-conspirator. No one brought more women in and lied to more women about what was going to happen with their involvement.
He lying,
with
he's
Jeffrey Epstein
stuttering,
and Ghislaine Maxwell.
and he lying.
We know that obviously Maxwell was a guest at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. There weren't many people
And let's
that
be
went to that
clear.
wedding. So
This,
again, we're not accusing Hillary Clinton of
started
wrongdoing.
under
We know that
Trump's
Jeffrey
first
Epstein said many
administration. He
times
was
in
the
emails that he was
whistleblower.
the
Why
first
was it
person
not
to raise
done
money for the Clinton
8
initiative,
years
the
ago?
Clinton Foundation, that he solicited money at some of his
People are
properties for the
ridiculous.
Clinton Foundation. Again, that's not saying anything's illegal.
Full of
but,
excuses to
there
cover
are a lot of questions
people
pertaining
who
to Secretary Clinton
victimize
with respect to
children
Epstein
and eat
his
them.
involvement in the Clinton initiative and her relationship with Ghislaine
Allegedly.
Maxwell. So we'll come out every hour when we get finished, and different members will update you and answer any questions. Thank you all.
The Clintons forced to go to Washington at taxpayer expense to come all the way here.
They don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about spending taxpayers' money on this foolishness. They want to have every excuse to keep Trump hidden, his misdeeds hidden. It's the craziest mess ever. Talk about 4 years ago. What about 8 years ago? When he snitched and told it. If he told it 8 years ago, why is he not telling it now? Oh, because his name is in the Epstein files. Yeah. I wonder why. If he snitched then, talk about it again.
Come closer. Closer.
This time include yourself.
Actually looks like.
And not expect to be redacted.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown. Glenn, we have a bloodbath at the FBI at the hands of Kash Patel. Can you explain what he just did at the FBI?
You know, Brian, these things should hit like atomic bombs when we hear that 10
Making
FBI
excuses for
employees,
PDFers.
including special agents, were just terminated, just fired by Kash Patel. Why? Because they were involved in legitimate law enforcement investigations of crimes allegedly committed by Donald Trump and other co-conspirators. And what did they have the nerve to do? According to the reporting,
Lie,
they used
cover it up.
lawful subpoenas to acquire phone record information from private citizens. Who were those private citizens? Kash Patel and Susie Wiles. This was in the 2022-2023 timeframe. I don't know what Susie Wiles was doing. Kash Patel was a podcaster. And because there was reason to subpoena their cell phone records in connection with the classified documents investigation down in Mar-a-Lago, Kash Patel retaliates against them and, I suspect, unlawfully terminates them. 10 employees. Brian, you know, this should hit like an 11 on the governmental corruption Richter scale with an FBI agent retaliating like this. And yet, in Donald Trump's administration, it's just another day of lawlessness. But, you know, I can only hope that these 10 FBI agents and employees come forward, talk about their experiences, talk about what they know without violating their oath of confidentiality in any respect, and then sue the pants off of Kash Patel for wrongful termination if they determine the facts support those lawsuits.
Look, I understand the virtue of suing the federal government, but it's
years about going after pedophiles, are actively covering up for pedophiles.
Transparency Act. The American people sent Donald Trump a clear and simple demand: release the Epstein files. Donald Trump said he wants to turn the page on the Epstein files. Democrats are not going to let Donald Trump turn the page. It was not a suggestion, not a request. The law requires the DOJ to release all the files, not just some of the files, not just the ones they pick and choose and want to do. Since then, we've seen the Justice Department break the law and continue to hide the truth from the American people. Let me be blunt. There's a massive cover-up going on in the Justice Department to protect Donald Trump and people associated with Jeffrey Epstein. As we expected, Trump, Bondi, and their minions have played games with the release of these files. They release some documents that they want to release and continue to hide others. The American people see right through it, and they're all asking the obvious question: what is Bondi trying to hide? President Trump, what are you trying to hide? That's the question the American people are asking. Senate Democrats' Epstein Working Group, including my colleagues here with me, have been preparing for this very scenario. We saw what they were doing. And so we're working with victims' attorneys, we're working with legal experts, we're working with people very familiar with this case to ensure full compliance of the law. We know the administration's withholding some documents unlawfully. Yesterday, news outlets reported that several memos detailing a woman's accusation against the president from when she was a minor have been withheld from the public. We know they're abusing redactions to hide the truth. Hundreds of pages are completely blacked out. Co-conspirator identities remain hidden while survivors have been exposed. We're here today to put a shot across the bow of the Department of Justice and the Trump administration that we are going to reveal this massive cover-up. We will not rest. It's an all-out oversight effort. We're going to pull on every thread. We're going to chase every lead. We'll talk with whistleblowers. We will get to the truth. Our working group, Senate Democrats, will go review the unredacted files in the coming days. Let me repeat that. Our working group, Senate Democrats, will go review the unredacted files in the coming days. Pam Bondi should listen carefully. The truth will come out. The whole ugly truth about what she's doing to protect people in the files will come out. The whole world is going to know exactly what she knew, when she knew it, and what she did to cover it up. Democrats are going to hold Pam Bondi and everyone involved at the DOJ accountable for this cover-up. Today we are demanding that the Department of Justice and the FBI preserve records on what transpired behind the scenes. We want to know who was involved in the decision to hide the truth. And a warning to the Trump cronies working on this: we will know if you are destroying documents and evidence. You will not outrun the law. You will not outrun the truth. This isn't political. The survivors deserve the truth, and the American people are demanding it. Democrats and Republicans agree the American people deserve the truth. So Donald Trump, stop hiding, stop delaying, come clean with the American people. And if you don't, Democrats will make sure the truth comes out. Our next speaker is Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Senator Schumer. With the Epstein files, the Trump administration had an opportunity to secure a win for survivors, for accountability, and for transparency. But after mishandling the files for a year, it took an act of Congress to force Pam Bondi and Kash Patel to even consider providing justice. Even after the passage of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, the Trump administration decided to violate federal law to protect the rich and powerful. The law required DOJ to produce the files by December 19th, yet the vast majority of those files were not produced until January 30th, 42 days
Taking that
later.
APAC money. You absolutely
Department
right.
of Justice has violated the legislation's
They're not America
protections
first.
by
And any
publishing
American
records
who
without
think they
redacting
are is sick in the
personally
head.
identifiable information of
Need to
victims,
stop eating, folk.
including nude photos where their names and faces could be identified. In
Good
sharp
morning,
contrast,
Ananya.
other produced records heavily redacted information identifying powerful business and political figures who are alleged conspirators or material witnesses to Epstein's crimes. Violations of the Epstein Files Transparency Act continue as the Department of Justice has yet to produce all Epstein-related records required by law and has removed thousands of records from the website beyond those that inappropriately identify victims. Keep in mind, a whistleblower told my office that FBI agents reviewing the Epstein files were instructed to flag any records that mentioned President Donald Trump. This disclosure is even more damning in light of yesterday's bombshell. The New York Times report that the Justice Department failed to disclose documents related to a woman who alleged that Trump sexually assaulted her when she was a minor. Simply put, Pam Bondi and Kash Patel have mismanaged these records during their tenure in office. That is why, as ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, I'm joining our leader, Charles Schumer, in a letter to the Justice Department and FBI requesting the preservation of records related to the management of the Epstein files over the course of the Trump administration. Preserving federal records and safeguarding information critical to congressional oversight is a legal obligation that all department employees are required to meet. As I told General Bondi during last year's Judiciary Committee oversight hearing, quote, eventually you're going to have to answer for your conduct in this. You won't do it today, but eventually you will. The survivors deserve better. It's clear that Donald Trump and his Republican enablers are executing a cover-up and conceal strategy. Heads are rolling at the highest levels of the United Kingdom. Will heads roll in the United States? When will the Trump administration come clean with the survivors and the American people? The sooner, the better. Next, I believe.
Yeah, President Trump, President Trump didn't want us to be able to hear it. Yeah.
The Epstein Files Transparency
They
Act,
didn't want us to be able to hear what's going on live. They have something to hide. The Trump administration has something to hide.
Embarrassment, reputational harm, political sensitivity, including any government official, public
It
security,
could, we could be listening to them right now.
Here we are.
But Trump said no, because he know he's a PDFer.
What we have seen is the files have not been released according to the law. We have seen that victims' names and photos that were supposed to be redacted weren't redacted, and all kinds of redactions appear to have occurred for folks who are potential perpetrators. And we're seeing the Epstein files reverberate across the world. The Prime Minister of Norway, the former ambassador from Britain to the United States, King Charles' brother. But what about here in the United States of America? Why is there no accountability here in the United States of America for these atrocious crimes, the place where they occurred? We know that there were about 6 million pages, of which only somewhat more than 3 million have been released. We want those other 3 million released. And among them are these 50 pages that entail, as the New York Times said,
Claims made in 2019 by a woman who came forward after Mr. Epstein's arrest to say she'd been sexually assaulted by both Mr. Trump and Epstein when she was 13 to 15 years old. And it goes on to say that there were 4 interviews with this woman, and only one of those interviews was released. Where are the other 3? Now, we know the other 3 exist because they are in the index. And yet, the pages are missing. How can anyone justify that these interviews have not been released? So, that is a massive cover-up by this administration. It's a massive and unacceptable cover-up. We also know from the Telegraph that there are 6 secret storage units rented across the country by Epstein that may have contained information that the Department of Justice hasn't apparently attempted to retrieve. By unanimous consent, the Senate said, yes, we passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Senator Schumer came forward and tried to strengthen that act with some real penalties, and the Republican whip objected. Well, if Republicans were with us on seeking full disclosure, why object to putting more teeth into this bill? We all together, Democrats and Republicans, should be saying yes on transparency for the public. Yes.
Trump said no.
On accountability for the perpetrators. And yes, for the closest thing we can get to justice for the victims.
Trump said no. He don't want the public to know.
As we stated, princes, CEOs, the most powerful men in the world are being held accountable everywhere except the United States, where we are supposed to be a country of equal justice under the law. We are actually proving quite the opposite. You know, what we're proving here right now, what the Republicans are proving right now with the help of Donald Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi, is that if you are part of the Epstein class, if you are rich enough, you are powerful enough, you can do some really horrific things.
Thank you, Monty.
Children, raping women.
Section 2 and Article 4. Absolutely.
And this administration, the Republicans, will engage in an active cover-up for you. And even more so, now we're getting more reports of some real serious allegations of this president from a minor, a woman who was a minor, that is accusing the president of some very serious crimes. The American public deserves to know what happened, who was involved. Not just President Trump, but everyone else involved, all these powerful men that are still walking around the United States right now. We're only talking about a couple years removed, a decade removed from a lot of these allegations. These men are still in power. These men are still potentially victimizing women, victimizing children. And the fact that this administration is actively covering up past crimes potentially means they're covering up current crimes. It's time for us to have full transparency. It's time for us to have accountability. It's time for us to throw some people in jail that did some really horrible stuff against kids in this country. And the fact that Donald Trump and the Republicans, after talking a big game for so many years about going after pedophiles, are actively covering up for pedophiles right now should tell you exactly what is wrong with this administration. I
agree.
I'm going to have to go read those redacted files next week. It's one of those things that you don't want to do. The disgusting nature of what I'm going to find on there is going to, probably make me very ill. But because we have an administration that's actively covering up for pedophiles, we have to take this step, and we have to take this step to keep them accountable and to expose all these pedophiles that are still in power right now all over this country. Thank you.
Just one more point, which this article from the New York Times shows. More and more keeps coming out, and the more that comes out, the more we see how large their cover-up has been. Questions on this subject? But yes, in the back. Yeah, we're all going together. Yeah, I mentioned that in my remarks. Yes. Yeah. Yes. I don't know if we're going to get. We're all going, and we have set up appointments to go. Yes. Well, the bottom line is the Republicans all voted for it, every single one, And we're going to keep at it. We're going to use every strategy we can, going to the Justice Department, seeking lawsuits, as well as whatever legislative strategies will work. Yes. Look, all the truth should come out, period. Yes. As my colleagues well outlined, I agree. Yeah, all we want is the truth. The truth. Yes. There will be efforts to reach out to everyone who's willing to come forward and speak. And do you want to talk about that? Yeah. Yeah, so we can get it. Yes.
Now you better get you some beats until
Well, let's
get your blood pressure down.
Documents. We want to protect people's identities, but we also want the truth to come out, and we will walk that line with great vigor. Yes.
Hi, Marie.
Yeah, we're going to demand justification
Hey,
for any
Cynthia.
redactions, and if the redactions are cover-ups as opposed to protecting identities, we're going to get to the bottom of it. We're going to get to the bottom of it. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Hold on.
Project Clydesdale hearings in Tulsa County.
It says this can lead to severe legal to. This facility will be air-cooled, so the average daily use is going to be somewhere between 15,000 to 20,000 gallons per day. That is just over $90,000 annually. When you add the additional 660 jobs announced in 20.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
And watch what James Comer says here. Play. Donald Trump is losing it this morning as his plan with the MAGA Republicans to depose former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. It is blowing up in Donald Trump and MAGA's face right now. So in Chappaqua, New York, you have Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton's deposition taking place today. But what the press were asking the MAGA Republicans who showed up for these depositions, although they weren't at Les Wexner's depositions, but what the people want to know and what the press want to know is, why is Donald Trump covering up FBI 302 interviews from survivors who have accused Donald Trump of sexual assault when they are minors? So that was posed to James Comer. Comer, what do you have to say about that? Here, play this clip.
Are you concerned that there has been a cover-up of sexual abuse of a minor by President Trump? There are missing FBI records that appear to be.
No, we're looking into the accusation by the NPR. We don't know the answer to that. We know what the administration says. We're still looking to get a definitive answer on that.
Also, James Comer and the MAGA Republicans who showed up to Hillary Clinton's deposition in connection with Epstein. Why in the world are the Clintons being deposed here? What are we even talking about? Clinton's name's not even in, Hillary Clinton's name's not even in the files, but okay. You wanna go there, Comer? All right, what about Howard Lutnick? Why isn't Howard Lutnick's deposition taking place? And watch what James Comer says. Here, play this clip.
So we'll do one more question. Go ahead.
In the spirit of bipartisanship, would you then ask the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick to come testify? It seems like he has some information.
That's very possible, and I think I think it's a good possibility that his name will arise in some questioning today.
It'll be on my list, and I have an email I printed off for Hillary to ask about Howard Lutnick today.
Okay.
So
God's watching.
We're asking again, and I want to remind everyone: we've already brought in Alex Acosta and Bill Barr for deposition. That's two Republicans in the Trump administration. So this isn't just about Democrats. This is about anyone that has any knowledge of Epstein, the investigation. I think we all agree the government failed. The government failed the victims. And what our role is, we can't prosecute anyone. But what we have been doing is getting transparency to the American people. We subpoena.
Then you have Democratic Congressmember Garcia. He held his press conference outside where Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton were being deposed. And Congressmember Garcia says what we really need to be talking about is the fact that Donald Trump and his regime are hiding massive amounts of information from the Epstein files. And specifically, we know he's hiding files that are from individuals who say that when they were minors, Donald Trump sexually assaulted them. Those accusations are now being hidden. Watch Congressmember Garcia make it clear what should really be discussed right now. Here, play this clip.
But I also want to say, what I think is very important, that at this very moment, the Department of Justice continues to lead a White House cover-up. And we're going to be demanding, even over these next few days, that the remaining files that have not been released get released to the public. And that includes new files that were just discovered in the last couple days of a survivor that has made serious accusations and allegations against not just Jeffrey Epstein, but also against President Trump, and about abuse that she suffered when she was a minor. We have seen the DOJ files and the archive manifest that clearly shows that the interviews and information around this survivor have been removed and are missing from the DOJ files. Where are these files? Who removed them? Those questions have to be answered. What we have is a survivor that we have verified, that others have verified, and those files are missing. And it's not just those. It's an additional 50% of files that are missing. It is unconscionable. It is illegal. And Pam Bondi and the president need to answer to where those files are. And that's going to continue to drive our...
Then you have Democratic Congressmember Subramanian. Here's what he had to say.
I'm Congressman Suhas Subramaniam. We're here today in New York to talk to Hillary Clinton and tomorrow to talk to former President Bill Clinton. I want to make clear that there were no Republicans in Ohio to talk to Les Wexner, who bankrolled Epstein's fortune for the most part and allowed a lot of his crimes to happen. That Hillary Clinton, who maintains that she doesn't recall meeting Jeffrey Epstein, is here today. And we have a lot of Republicans here today. That underscores to me the partisan nature of what some of the Republicans on our committee and in Congress are doing and the way they're approaching this investigation. And meanwhile, they're not holding the Department of Justice accountable for breaking the law over and over again. There's 2.5 million files that have not been released. And now we're hearing and seeing evidence of some of those files, including accusations against President Trump. We know that there are other information in those files that clearly is not about protecting victims. It's about protecting people who committed crimes. And so we, as Democrats on the Oversight Committee, are going to continue to approach this investigation in a nonpartisan way, because all we want is the truth, and we want justice for the survivors, and we want to make sure this never happens again, no matter how rich and powerful the perpetrators are. Thank you.
Also this morning, it should be noted that Borge Brend, the president and CEO of the World Economic Forum, remember that guy? Remember at Davos, he was the guy who was all chummy with Donald Trump. You see them on stage right there. Borge Brend remember he posted on January 21st. It was a pleasure to welcome Donald Trump to Davos at a time of significant economic, technological, and geopolitical change. The World Economic Forum provides a platform for leaders from government, business, and civil society to exchange views on issues shaping the world. Well, that guy, Borge Brend, has now announced that he's stepping down from his position He's quitting following an independent investigation into his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, here's a photo of him and Steve Bannon as well. And so one of the things, first off, he was Norway's foreign minister. And then he took over the World Economic Forum in 2017. The recently released Epstein files, as EuropaReports.com, revealed that Brend had communicated with and met Jeffrey Epstein numerous times, despite stating he had not done so previously. Brend claimed that he was unaware of Epstein's criminal past, but the files show that he sent a thumbs up emoji to a link Jeffrey Epstein sent him of his criminal sentence. Controversy was also caused, Europa says, by Epstein and Brend ridiculing the wife of Benjamin Netanyahu and calling her Miss Piggy. Yes, they use the name Piggy as well, the way Donald Trump refers to women as. But seems like it's the Epstein class protecting the Epstein class. But for Donald Trump, the message that he wants out this morning is that this is about the patriots versus the hatriots. Maybe, Donald, it's about the pedos and pedo protectors like you and your regime versus the people. Maybe that's the divide that we're seeing right now. The Epstein class and everybody else. Donald, I think that's how the American people see it. Donald, and then the Epstein class protectors all had to rush on state regime media this morning to protect dear leaders' fragile but rapidly deteriorating, cracking ego. So you had over here, Perino interviewing MAGA Republican Congress member Pat Fallon. And so what do you think? The question was, what do you think? There seems to be a lot of questions that the Department of Justice may be suppressing files. What say you, MAGA Republican Congressman? And the MAGA Republican Congressman goes, it's Biden's fault. Biden released zero. Look at what we're doing right now. Everything with them is Biden. Hey, your dear leader is all over these files, bud. 38,000 times in what has been released, potentially 1 million times in what hasn't been released. In what has been released, his name appears more than Harry in the Harry Potter series, more than God or Jesus in the Bible. But okay, go ahead and talk about Biden. Here, play this clip.
For people that are following the story and are seeing that there's been a recent controversy and a question on whether the Department of Justice suppressed some of the information in the investigation that would have dealt with President Trump, how would you respond?
Oh, not at all. I mean, just look at the data, right? Under the Biden White House and the DOJ, 0 files were released. No videos, no images, nothing. When we got control of the Oversight Committee, the Republicans released 65,000 documents, and the DOJ has now released 2,000 videos, 180,000 images, and 3.5 million documents and pages. We've been very forthcoming and very transparent. I'd like to know why the Democrats weren't interested in this when Joe Biden was president.
Okay, Chappaqua about an hour away.
Whether you're planting now or later, Fast Growing Trees has everything you need to make your dream yard a reality. Starting with the best quality and selection of plants delivered to your door. Fast Growing Trees is America's largest online nursery.
Then you have MAGA Republican Congress member Fallon saying, look, the reason that we need to depose Bill Clinton right now, the reason we're doing this is that we've never had a former president this close to a convicted felon. He's trying to say that Bill Clinton was close to Epstein. That's why you realize that Donald Trump is a convicted felon. You realize that Donald Trump's been found civilly liable for sex assault. You know, it's when people are like, oh, there's nothing in the files about Donald Trump. There's a ton in the files about Donald Trump. But even if I didn't look in the files, I could just look into life and I could be like, well, isn't that the guy who said, and he brags that he sexually assaults women and grabs them by their genitals because when you're rich, you get away with it? Isn't that a direct quote? Doesn't he say that he inspects girls naked at beauty pageants because when you're the inspector, you get away with it? It's your job as the head of the beauty pageant. Isn't it that guy who found civilly liable for sexual assault? But go ahead, Fallon. Go ahead. Here, play this clip.
Here we are. We made a lot of accommodations. We came to them, but we just want to find out the truth. We want accountability and transparency for the American people and for the survivors of.
So this has never been done before, and a former president's never been compelled to appear before Congress. Is this where this is all heading as of today?
Well, we've never had a former president either this close to a convicted felon either. I mean, it's problematic.
Okay, but now they need their pick, right? Oh no, what did we do? Now everybody's talking about Donald Trump and the accusations against him in the Epstein files.
Yep.
All right, where are we going with this one? War with Greenland. So they start that again. Doug Burgum, Donald Trump's interior secretary, or someone says the secretary of the exterior, right? Well, why is the interior secretary talking about war with Greenland? But okay, War with Greenland Day again, everybody. There they go. We need to take it over. Play this clip.
What else can you tell us about that?
Well, Ambassador Whitaker has it right. This is a strategic importance. Think of it as a bookend, Alaska on one end and Greenland on the other, really providing the shield, if you will, to protect North America and the United States. Absolutely critical. And of course, there is more activity up there, both Russia and China active in the Arctic. And we need to make sure that the U.S. is, if we're going to carry on as they call it, the Donroe Doctrine, North and South America, free from these interests of our adversaries, Greenland is key. Some people have described Greenland as, one big piece of ice. It is 2.5 times the size of Alaska, and Alaska is the size of California plus Arizona plus New Mexico plus Texas.
Wow.
And so the 80% of Greenland that it does have ice, the 20% that doesn't in Greenland is the size of California. Size of California with 50,000 people living there. There's such an opportunity for the Greenlanders, such an opportunity for North America and the United States in a partnership. Just like, again, when we bought Alaska, there was hardly anybody living in Alaska. When the United States bought Alaska, now 800,000 people, and a major contributor to defense and a major contributor to U.S. energy.
Then bring in NATO Ambassador Matt Whitaker. War in Greenland. Play this clip.
Meanwhile, NATO reportedly falling behind Russia and China in the race to build up icebreakers and other tools critical for the potential war in the Arctic. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum is renewing President Trump's calls to take on Greenland, calling it a strategic vital asset for the U.S. economy and national security. The Secretary, of course, will join me at 8 a.m. Eastern, and he's going to talk more about that this morning. But where are the NATO allies at this point? Is this off the table, or is this still a consideration for the United States to use Greenland as a critical security spot? I know the president has discussed wanting to build part of his Golden Dome on Greenland.
Yeah, obviously Greenland is a critical part of North American security. We have a high-level working group that's negotiating trilaterally with the United States, Denmark, and Greenland.
War in Cuba. Let's strangle the regime, MAGA Republicans say. War in Cuba. Play the clip.
Are we doing something other than strangling them?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what we need to do. We need to strangle the regime. For too long, we've been actively, not actively, but passively helping them. We send remittances. We have flights. We allowed luxury goods to be exported from the United States, kind of circumventing the Helms-Burton law. Right now, everything is, the noose is tightening around their neck. They lost Venezuela, which was one of their prime, friends in the region. Mexico is no longer helping them as much as they were in the past, and so they are slowly, strangling to death, which can't come soon enough for me. We need that regime to go.
Yep.
The regime is causing this humanitarian crisis in Cuba, and the faster they go, the faster that we can help the Cuban people.
War in Iran, war everywhere,
Professor
everybody.
at Arizona State
Those are all the
University.
clips this
He had
morning.
to resign after allegations of sexual misconduct arose. This is the email chain between Rebecca Tableson and Lawrence Krauss. At the time, she was a government employee, assistant United States attorney. She was informing her uncle, essentially, how to respond to an inquiry from the dean of what appears to be Arizona State University. And guess where her uncle sent it to? Jeffrey Epstein, from my brilliant niece. No wonder she clerked for the Supreme Court. Want to know what justice she clerked for? Justice Scalia. Those are the files. Spread the word. Follow along for all the news you need to know about. We have some big news right now. A Trump-appointed circuit court judge that some may even say he may be grooming for the Supreme Court one day was just caught in the Epstein files. And here's what you need to know about. I was searching through the Epstein files and I saw this name, Rebecca Tableson. Seems innocuous, right? Well, she's currently a judge on the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals appointed by Donald Trump last year. Now let's talk about why she's in the Epstein files. Her uncle, his name is Lawrence Krauss. Lawrence Krauss is a former professor at Arizona State University. He had to resign after allegations of sexual misconduct arose. This is the email chain between Rebecca Tableson and Lawrence Krauss. At the time, she was a government employee, assistant United States attorney. She was informing her uncle, essentially, how to respond to an inquiry from the dean of what appears to be Arizona State University. And guess where her uncle sent it to? Jeffrey Epstein. From my brilliant niece. No wonder she clerked for the Supreme Court. Innocuous, right? Well, she's currently a judge on the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals, appointed by Donald Trump last year.
Appointed
Now,
by
let's talk
who?
about why she's in the Epstein files. Her uncle, his name is Lawrence Krauss. Lawrence Krauss is a former professor at Arizona State University. He had to resign after allegations of sexual misconduct arose. This is the email chain between Rebecca Tableson and Lawrence Krauss. At the time, she was a government employee, assistant United States attorney. She was informing her uncle, essentially, how to respond to an inquiry from the dean of what appears to be Arizona State University. And guess where her uncle sent it to? Jeffrey Epstein. From my brilliant niece. No wonder she clerked for the Supreme Court. Want to know what justice she clerked for? Justice Scalia. Those are the files. Spread the word. Follow along for all the news you need to know about. We have some big news right now. A Trump-appointed circuit court judge that some may even say he may be grooming for the Supreme Court one day was just caught in the Epstein files. And here's what you need to know about. I was searching through the Epstein files and I saw this name, Rebecca Tableson. Seems innocuous, right? Well, she's currently a judge on the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals, appointed by Donald Trump last year. Now let's talk about why she's in the Epstein files. Her uncle, his name is Lawrence Krauss. Lawrence Krauss is a former professor at Arizona State University. He had to resign after allegations of sexual misconduct arose. This is the email chain between Rebecca Tableson and Lawrence Krauss. At the time, she was a government employee, assistant United States attorney. She was informing her uncle, essentially, how to respond to an inquiry from the dean of what appears to be Arizona State University. And guess where her uncle sent it to? Jeffrey Epstein. From my brilliant niece. No wonder she clerked for the Supreme Court. Want to know what justice she clerked for? Justice Scalia. Those are the files. Spread the word.
Let's keep going here. Baby, the rabbit hole.
I mean, if you think about the aircraft carriers
rabbit
right
hole
now
is
and the tours
deep.
that they are doing right now, as this news.usni.org points out, should the USS Gerald Ford remain deployed until mid-April, right? We're getting pretty close to that. It would have broken the post-Vietnam War 294-day record for carrier deployments. If the carrier out is until early May, it would match the 300-day plus deployments that carriers conducted to the Gulf of Tonkin. I mean, Trump is really stretching our military thin right now. The president of peace is going to so much wars that the morale in our military and the resources are being stretched very, very thin right now. A few other things I want to point out. Data, folks. You know we love data right here. When you look at Donald Trump's State of the Union address, viewership, only 28 million viewers across the 8 major networks. By the way, the Midas Touch Network People's State of the Union drew over 2 million viewers. And if you look, this was like one of the worst ratings for a State of the Union ever. I mean, in 2020, 37.2, 2018, 45.6. Just look at Donald Trump's other State of the Unions. Nobody wants to hear this guy speak. In the latest Emerson poll of the congressional ballot, generic congressional ballots, Democrats lead 50 to 42%. And yet again, 3 weeks in a row, the Midas Touch podcast is #1 on the weekly top podcast shows, beating Joe Rogan, Good Mythical Morning, Kill Tony, Sean Ryan Show, Smosh Reads, Tucker Carlson, and others. Way to go, Midas Mighty. Now hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers. And make sure you subscribe to our audio.
Hold on. The plot thickens. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Where did he take that down?
This is the karma Melania Melania Trump is being haunted by the Epstein files in federal court. This is the karma Melania Trump deserves. Now, Melania Trump has been threatening to sue a lot of reporters and journalists who made statements about her connections to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. One of those people she threatened to sue was Donald Trump's former biographer, Michael Wolff, and she said back in October of 2025, if you do not issue a retraction based on articles and statements you made to the Daily Beast and elsewhere, Melania said, Wolff, I'm going to sue you for $1 billion and issue a public apology to me immediately. Michael Wolff said, you know what, Melania, I'm going to sue you in New York State Court for your attack on my free speech right. Wolff sues Melania in New York State Court. She tries to dodge and duck service of the summons and complaint. She basically disappears as Wolff tries to serve her. She then makes a filing in federal court trying to remove the case that Wolff filed in state court to federal court. She now wants that case transferred to Florida, where she says that she lives in Mar-a-Lago. Michael Wolff says, no, this is just a scam you're running to try to get the case in front of Judge Eileen Cannon, and we don't think you actually live in Florida. We think you live in Trump Tower. Michael Wolff identifies not the penthouse where Trump lived or lives in or once lived in Manhattan at Trump Tower, but another unit. And Michael Wolff says, Melania, your doorman, the people who work in the lobby, were also saying you live here, and he brings a bunch of other evidence. Melania lawyers say, well, she's got a Florida driver's license, she's got a voting record in Florida, but Melania does not submit a declaration, and Michael Wolff tells the federal judge where Melania has tried to move this case in front of, she hasn't even submitted a declaration, Your Honor. And when you look at her posts that she makes on social media, if you look at the movie Melania, and if you look at the Epstein files, you'll see that she continually talks about New York as her home. Heck, she made a social media post where she bragged about being from New York. Remember when she made this post back in August 27th of 2024, where she says, New York City captivated my heart the moment I arrived 28 years ago today. This is an electrifying town. It's not just my home. It's a colorful canvas where dreams come alive. New York's iconic skyline and vibrant culture inspire me every day. So it's an interesting dynamic here, right? Melania threatens to sue Wolff for defamation. She still hasn't sued him for defamation. Wolff sues her for attacking his First Amendment right. She doesn't file any counterclaims or any cross complaints. She dodges service. She runs to a federal judge in New York to try to delay this thing and get it moved to Florida, where I think she wants to be in front of Judge Cannon. But Wolff continues to call her out, and he also, says, look, remember this email that Ghislaine Maxwell and Melania sent to each other back in 2002, where Ghislaine referred to Melania as Sweet Pea. Sweet Pea, thanks for your message. Actually, plans changed again, Ghislaine told Melania in 2002. And I'm now on my way back to New York. I leave again on Friday, so I still do not think I have time to see you, sadly. I will try and call, though. And Melania previously wrote to her, how are you? Nice story about Jeffrey Epstein in New York Magazine. You look great on the picture. That's the New York Magazine profile where Donald Trump said Epstein likes girls on the younger side. I know you are very busy flying all over the world, Melania tells Ghislaine. How is Palm Beach? I cannot wait to go down. Give me a call when you are back in New York. So Wolff is like, she's saying she lives in New York here, and now she just is claiming she lives in Florida again to try to get this case before Judge Cannon, and she's saying she votes there, and she's saying that she has a license there. But what if she's doing it for other purposes? Hypothetically, could it be an issue over state income taxes? I don't know. We're just asking questions here, using our First Amendment right to do that. Is she claiming other reasons and other protections, homestead exemptions and other things to try to say her domicile is in Florida? But she seems to want to delay a case where Wolff is suing her But she she said she was going to be suing Wolf for defamation. So if you think Wolf defamed you about making comments that you have connections to Ghislaine and Epstein, why don't you sue Wolf for $1 billion? Or are you afraid of discovery? And Melania seems to be just that, afraid of discovery. So the latest filing that just took place was by Michael Wolf. He just filed this brief, and he points out a few things. He said, look, if Melania really claims she lives in Florida, okay, her lawyers are saying she's got a license there and she votes there and all of these things. So why wouldn't Melania herself sign an affidavit under penalty of perjury that says that? The most basic thing in the world, if you're claiming that, is sign a declaration under penalty of perjury. But Melania has refused to do that. One of the other things that Michael Wolf points out as well, because one of the ways a case can go to federal court or it stays in federal court is if the parties are from different states. Wolf is from New York, Melania claims she's from Florida, and the damages being sought are over $75,000. Wolf, very smart litigation strategy. He goes, I'm not claiming over $75,000 in damages. I'm claiming under $25,000 in damages. I'm just claiming that Melania chilled my First Amendment speech. She wants to write me a check and admit that she's wrong for $20,000. That's fine. I'm actually not. She's the one who claimed billions of dollars in damage, not me. I just want her to stop threatening my free speech right to express my opinions and to report about my belief that she has these connections to Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And it's not just my opinions. Look at the email that I just discussed with you. Sweet Pea, Jeffrey Epstein, great in New York Magazine, the photos of Melania and Epstein and Ghislaine together. They seem to be social buddies. It is what it is. I mean, what? Melania says she wants to sue Michael Wolf because he said that it was Epstein who connected Melania with Donald Trump. And she goes, that's not true. It was a guy named Paolo Zampoli, another guy who owned a modeling agency. And we were introduced at the Kit Kat Club. You know, this guy Zampoli, he's an ambassador now. He's a major diplomat for Donald Trump, go figure, right? He was the one who connected Donald Trump and Melania. This guy had a modeling agency where he brought in young Eastern European girls or women, and he brought them to New York, and he would host these parties at the Kit Kat Club where the wealthy Manhattan businessmen, the rich, the elites, if you will, would go and meet these Eastern European girls. And Melania met Donald Trump that way.
What does that have to do
Melania
with the
says
topic?
that's the true story. And even though Epstein and Paolo and Donald and Jean-Luc Brunel
what does that have to do
and
with
all
the
those
topic?
people were friends and they were tight. It was actually Zampoli. That's the distinction that Melania wants to make right here. Let me just go through this filing that was just made in the past 48 hours by Michael Wolf. Trump's failure to offer, referring to Melania, any facts or declaration by her or her counsel to justify removing this case to federal court or to contest Wolf's detailed presentation of facts mandates remand. Meaning let's litigate and fight this case out in state court. The analysis of citizenship turns not on formalities, Wolf says, but on the realities of a person's life. It looks to the center of Melania Trump's domestic, social, and civil life, and on her intent to return even if she presently lives elsewhere. The burden of proof falls heavily upon the party seeking removal. When one professes a change in citizenship, that burden is heightened. The removal statute is to be construed strictly and narrowly, resolving all doubts against removability. Wealthy people may have multiple residences, but they could have one citizenship. To rely, as Trump has, on nothing more than a claim of possession of a driver's license and a voter registration and other merely conclusory pronouncements, coyly referencing in a memo of law, demonstrates nothing more than a residence. Beyond that, Trump has shown nothing. Trump's citizenship and personal jurisdiction claims are ill-served by these meager offerings. There's no declaration from Melania Melania Trump. No declaration from her attorneys. No assertion of fact anywhere beyond the conclusory claim to Florida citizenship and an unseen driver's license that allowed Trump to vote in Florida. More remarkable is that Trump has offered no declaration or affidavit even to challenge any of the facts in our lengthy declaration that outlines Trump's true, sustained, and substantial activities in New York City. Not a single fact set out in our declaration has been contested by any submission from defendant Trump in the motion sequence. This factual silence is nothing less than a default, a proof of failure. There is no factual record now to justify removal, no factual record to support lack of jurisdiction. This is not merely a proof of failure, it's a deliberate choice to avoid having Trump make any sworn commitments or to have any sworn commitments made for her by her counsel. It is a withholding of information that warrants an adverse inference. If there are any doubts, remand is required. If there is a firm factual contest, then discovery is warranted. Now, that's an important point because Wolf is saying, okay, she's not putting forward any affidavit. Her lawyers didn't put forward any affidavit. That's pretty suspicious. If you really claim you live in Mar-a-Lago, your lawyer's not going to put that under penalty of perjury himself, even though he's actually not the appropriate affiant, the person who writes the affidavit. You're not going to do it yourself, Melania? Okay. So now, even if, Judge, Your Honor, you think that because of what Melania put in a memorandum of law, which is not evidence, but let's just assume you think it's 50-50. Melania says she lives in Florida, and you think it's a tough call. Okay, Michael Wolff calls Melania's bluff and says, you know what we need to do? Let's take discovery. Let's have a deposition, and let me go through the Epstein files with her that talk about New York. Let me go through the Melania movie with her, where all of her team and all of her staff live in New York. Let me ask her about the specific apartment that I believe she lives in Trump Tower. Let me confront her with the fact that the doorman who's at Trump Tower says that this is her home. Let me confront her with her social media posts where she calls New York her home. And at the end of the day, folks, I don't want to miss the forest here for, zooming in on the trees. Melania is saying that Michael Wolff defamed her when he talks about her connections with Epstein and Ghislaine. Okay? She said, I'm going to sue you. She didn't. She still hasn't sued him. She hasn't sued him in Florida. She hasn't sued him in New York.
So she
hasn't sued him anywhere. And now she's playing games with her domicile, her jurisdiction, to try to get this case, in my opinion, before Judge Cannon, and then try to get this New York federal judge to move the case to Florida, and then once it's in Florida, to try to get the case dismissed or delay it. I mean, one of Melania's big arguments to try to get this case dismissed is that she hasn't been served because she has Secret Service, and because she's able to avoid service, she says that's why this case should be dismissed. So she went from threatening to sue, billion-dollar lawsuits and all of this, to now saying, you can't catch me, you can't catch me. But Melania, don't you want to try to catch Michael Wolff? If you believe that he's defaming you, now countersue him for $1 billion and present your case. So I don't know about you or what you think here. Isn't some of these facts just so glaring? She doesn't submit the affidavit. She doesn't sue him. She threatens. She huffs and puffs, but doesn't want to, in my view, sit for discovery or have her deposition taken. And I think she's being utterly exposed right now. And folks, this comes at the very same time, the very same moment that we know that Donald Trump is concealing multiple interviews of an individual who claims she was sexually assaulted as a minor by Donald Trump. We have right here the evidence log.
And physical.
And in the evidence log, and you got to give a shout out to Roger Sullenberger, also great reporting by NPR and others on this one, and a great work by the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee. But you can see here in this log, there are interviews that have not been produced of an individual who says that when she was a minor, Donald Trump sexually assaulted her. Where are those interviews? Oh, affidavits are missing. 302 interviews are missing. Everything is missing. But guess what Melania wants to talk about? Guess the level of corruption here. Melania Trump will preside over a UN Security Council meeting on Monday, per a statement by the Office of the First Lady, which will mark the first time a sitting U.S. First Lady presides over a Security Council as members consider education, technology, peace, and security. Why is Melania Trump presiding over the UN Security Council? The hell is that about? So she's avoiding service, but she's going to go into the UN and speak to who wants to speak to her about anything, right? I mean, who's trying to even talk to her about any of that? So there you have it. But look, Melania, like a lot of these people that are surrounding Donald Trump, right? I've had no connections. I don't know anything. I don't know Ghislaine. I don't know Jeffrey. You said Jeffrey Epstein looked great in the New York Magazine article where Donald Trump says that Epstein likes girls on the young side. Okay. You said Ghislaine looks great in the photos. She's calling you Sweet Pea. You obviously were friends.
Sweet
You seem like you were close friends based on that, in my opinion. So that's where we're at right now. That's the latest file.
Listen to this one here, over here. Y'all hit the like button. I need for y'all to double tap the face of your screen. Get the likes up.
But first, they are admitting that Epstein was blackmailing Bill Gates.
Bill Gates has reportedly admitted to having affairs with 2 Russian women, as the billionaire issued a groveling apology to staff over his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. The Wall Street Journal reported that Epstein had previously threatened Gates over the affair with one of the Russian women.
Now, the critical information they are not saying here is what I think you guys have been exactly was Israel telling its agent Jeffrey Epstein to order Bill Gates to do, or else the sex tape of Bill Gates with the Russian girl will be leaked. What was the blackmail specifically about? Was it about people's data on Microsoft? Was it the Bill Gates Foundation's mosquito experiments? Or was it about Bill Gates doing something for Israel regarding the global COVID vaccination campaign? What exactly was the action demanded by Israel, or else the sex tape will be leaked? To create a new global disease? The Epstein files show that blackmail for control of Western leaders and business elites in different fields is what the whole Israeli operation on Epstein Island was about. Thus, given what we now know of the graphic rituals that took place there, it is possible that Bill Gates is also a cannibal who ate the poor Russian girl after raping her, but they are not telling us all the information. Yet any crimes committed should be prosecuted. By the way, there are now social media reports that in the UK, Israel has another Epstein Island for exactly the same operation of sex orgies, blackmail, entrapment of UK politicians. 33 Portland Place, that's the address.
No, Monty, it wasn't a sweet pickle.
Israeli phenomena for coercing politicians everywhere to do whatever Israel demands of them. I wouldn't be surprised if Israel has similar entrapment, sex orgy, apartments, and super yachts in Dubai, Belize, or in any other holiday destination around the world right now as we speak.
Yeah, they build it. The New World Order.
Instagram girls who are always flying to Dubai.
So that's probably why. Hold on.
Where they get the money for the lifestyle.
That's probably why Epstein in Israel. Probably why they letting Ghislaine Maxwell out. Yeah, in the sightings and stuff. They working. They building. They creating them Epstein Islands in those foreign countries. I believe him. Let's go.
The Journal reported that Epstein had previously threatened Gates over the affair with one of the Russian women.
Now, the critical information they are not saying here is what exactly was Israel telling its agent Jeffrey Epstein to order Bill Gates to do, or else the sex tape of Bill Gates with the Russian girl will be leaked. What was the blackmail specifically about?
What was the blackmail about?
People's data on Microsoft. Was it the Bill Gates Foundation's mosquito experiments? Or was it about Bill Gates doing something for Israel regarding the global COVID vaccination campaign? What exactly was the action demanded by Israel, or else the sex tape will be leaked? To create a new global disease? The Epstein files show that blackmail for control of Western leaders and business elites in different fields is what the whole Israeli operation of Epstein Island...
Monty, you listening with your good ear?
Given what we now know of the graphic rituals that took place there, it is possible that Bill Gates is also a cannibal who ate the poor Russian girl after raping her, but they are not telling us all the information. Yet any crimes committed should be prosecuted. By the way, there are now social media reports that in the UK, Israel has another Epstein Island for exactly the same operation of sex orgies, blackmail, entrapment of UK politicians. 33 Portland Place, that's the address. So we are actually dealing with a global Israeli phenomena for coercing politicians everywhere to do whatever Israel demands of them. I wouldn't be surprised if Israel has similar entrapment, sex orgy, apartments, and super yachts in Dubai, Belize, or in any other holiday destination around the world right now as we speak. Orgies attended by all these Instagram girls who are always flying to Dubai but have no real jobs to show where they get the money for the lifestyle. Yet they are actually possibly victims of sex trafficking, keeping silent about what is being done to them on these trips and who the monsters are. A black British guy who says he saw the videos of UK's 33 Portland Place has had to flee the UK after being harassed by British police and other unknown British security agencies who are apparently covering for the British pro-Israel politicians who are also pedophiles, cannibals, and child sexual abusers. What is wrong with these white people? Eating children alive. In a video I saw, the guy says that the same UK politicians whom he saw in the CCTV videos of sex orgies at 33 Portland Place are the same UK politicians who are signing the UK bombs that were sent to kill children in the Gaza genocide. We in the global south are shocked and condemn all this madness by Israel and its European and American allies. We reject a world order led by Western cannibals, Western pedophiles, and satanic Western genocide accomplices. An alliance of monsters who rape and eat people's children alive at night. Then the next day they preach to Africa about their values of human rights and democracy. What about the rights of the children you hate? Watching all these news items about Africans fighting for Russia. And I've been following this and I looked at it and I'm suspecting that it is actually a coordinated disinformation campaign. But I didn't just have the time to take a serious look at it. And then I found this picture of a Kenyan, I think. And he's also showing a picture of him on the front lines in the combat. And this is disturbing. Israel's sex orgy entrapment operations are everywhere. Another Epstein Island has been discovered in the UK.
Yeah, I remember when I showed y'all months ago. They were having it like a meeting, some people at a pyramid, profit sharing, whatever, where he was showing them different islands to purchase. They could purchase an island, and one of the guys said, do the kids come with the island? And he said, oh, you can go to surrounding areas and grab the kids. They mentioned Cambodia, the Philippines. Yeah, that's kind of what he talking about right here.
But first, they are admitting that Epstein was blackmailing Bill Gates.
Bill Gates has reportedly admitted to having affairs with 2 Russian women, as the billionaire issued a groveling apology to staff over his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. The Wall Street Journal reported that Epstein had previously threatened Gates over the affair with one of the Russian women.
Now, the critical information they are not saying here is what exactly was Israel telling its agent Jeffrey Epstein to order Bill Gates to do, or else the sex tape of Bill Gates with the Russian girl will be leaked. What was the blackmail specifically about? Was it about people's data on Microsoft? Was it the Bill Gates Foundation's mosquito experiments? Or was it about Bill Gates doing something for Israel regarding the global COVID vaccination campaign? What exactly was the action demanded by Israel, or else the sex tape will delete? To create a new global disease? The Epstein files show that blackmail for control of Western leaders and business elites in different fields is what the whole Israeli operation on Epstein Island was about. Thus, given what we now know of the graphic rituals that took place there, it is possible that Bill Gates is also a cannibal who ate the poor Russian girl after raping her, but they are not telling us all the information. Yet any crimes committed should be prosecuted. By the way, there are now social media reports that in the UK, Israel has another Epstein Island for exactly the same operation of sex orgies, blackmail, entrapment of UK politicians. 33 Portland Place, that's the address. So we are actually dealing with a global
33 Portland Place
for coercing politicians everywhere to do whatever Israel demands of them. I wouldn't be surprised if Israel has similar entrapment, sex orgy, apartments, and super yachts in Dubai, Belize, or in any other holiday destination around the world right now as we speak. Orgies attended by all these Instagram girls who are always flying to Dubai but have no jobs to show where they get the money for the lifestyle. Yet they are actually possibly victims of sex trafficking, keeping silent about what is being done to them on these trips and who the monsters are. A black British guy who says he saw the videos of UK's 33 Portland Place has had to flee the UK after being harassed by British police and other unknown British security agencies who are apparently covering for the British pro-Israel politicians who are also pedophiles, cannibals, and child sexual abusers. What is wrong with these white people? Eating children alive. In a video I saw,
eating children
it says that the same UK politicians whom he saw in the CCTV videos of sex orgies at 33 Portland Place are the same UK politicians who are signing the UK bombs that were sent to kill children in the Gaza genocide. We in the global south are shocked and condemn all this madness by Israel and its European and American allies. We reject a world order led by Western cannibals, Western
reject the
pedophiles,
world
and
order.
Western genocide accomplices. An alliance of...
He reject the new world order. Wow. Yeah, because what they were selling, they're finding out that it's more to what they were selling with this new world order. Interesting. So they monsters.
Monsters who rape and eat people's children alive at night. Then the next day they preach to Africa about their values of human rights and democracy. What about the rights of the children you ate?
What about the rights of the children you ate? Oh my God. What about the rights of the children you ate? My. Wow. That man said, what about the children? That the rights of the children you ate. I gotta hear that part one more again before I move on. He said, what about the rights of the children you ate? With this.
That the same UK politicians whom he saw in the CCTV videos of sex orgies at 33 Portland Place are the same UK politicians who are signing the UK bombs that were sent to kill children in the Gaza genocide.
Hey, Miss Tom.
We in the global south are shocked and condemn all this madness by Israel and its European and American allies.
Israel.
We reject a world order led by Western cannibals. TV videos of sex orgies at 33 Portland Place are the same UK politicians who are signing the UK
33
bombs
Portland
that
Place
were sent to kill children in the Gaza genocide. we in the global south are shocked and condemn all this madness by Israel and its European and American allies. We reject a world order led by Western cannibals, Western pedophiles, and satanic Western genocide accomplices. An alliance of monsters who rape and eat people's children alive at night. Then the next day they preach to Africa about their values of human rights and democracy. What about the rights of the children you hate?
Wow.
I said, oh, that's very interesting.
Wow.
Because if you
That's
look
deep.
properly, the weapon.
That's deep. Hold on, y'all. That's deep. Oh my God. How do you combat that? I'm trying to see if
Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is testifying in front of House lawmakers, all part of the ongoing investigation into accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, she
This is
hadn't
a
came
live
out
look
yet.
outside the courthouse in New York.
Wow, I just made myself a big cup of tea. Oh yeah, I'm trying to get in there. I'm trying to get in there. I'm trying to catch her coming out. But in the meantime, I got some stuff. You know how I have it pinned to the side. Dang it, shit, they ain't came out yet. That's deep. What about it? Where's Clinton pictures? Oh, go ask the Democrats, Joseph. I'm sure if they have some, they would have put them out by now. But they dang sure got some in testimonies. Listen, where are the testimonies from victims who said Clinton aped them? Where are those? Why are they not in the Epstein file, Joseph? That's what you need to be asking. Forget pictures. Where are the testimonies of minors saying Bill Clinton did anything? Well, we have them now. We've been having them. Of them saying Trump did. Boys and girls. So, Joseph, you asking the wrong questions. Asked, where is the sworn statements? Where are the FBI investigations of Clinton raping minors? We'll wait until then. Shut up. Shut up. We would love to see where some kids and minors have said Clinton did bad things to them. I mean, because right now this is just a deflection because Trump is in there. And they've talked to her 4 times. So you stuck on stupid. Absolutely, I want to hear it. I want to hear it. No, I want to see Epstein files, because that's why we're here. We're not here for none of that other bull crap y'all pulling up. We're not here about Arkansas government. That's not why. They are here. They're here for the Epstein files. Stay focused. Stay focused, slow people. We are here about the Epstein files. None of that other stuff. That's called moving the goalpost. That's called deflecting from the truth. Yeah, y'all think it's about red and blue, Democrat and Republican, because that's all Trump has. That's all he can rely on. And he's brainwashed a lot of people with, it's the Democrats, where it was his pallywhacker that went into minors. Period. What about the rights of the minors? Y'all kill me deflecting. That means that y'all don't have nothing. Y'all don't have a defense. Well, we talking about the Epstein files right now. Can you stay on focus? You don't went to a $16.99. We talking about the Epstein files. That means, why are you even here? Get out. I mean, if you have to go to $16.99, Lord have mercy. Bye. I don't even want to entertain you. I don't even want to entertain you. Stay focused. Epstein files. Oh, this is crazy. So I'm finna dig deeper, like I always do, since we waiting on them to come out. Yeah, she gonna went to $16.99. Child, please. Hillary, they ain't got nothing. They ain't got nothing, do they? This is a deflection. It's a deflection. And them people over there looking for a reason to blame somebody else for they trifling big daddy that likes to eat on, suck on, beat on, ill on, ape on. Y'all act like y'all part of the code. That child says $16.99. And this man right here saying you coming over here to my country trying to solicit us, and y'all over there eating kids and building more Epstein Islands and try to preach to us about humanity. Wow.
And
wow.
Continuing to read from the Epstein files unedited and word for word. Tiffany Doe. And continuing to read from the Epstein files unedited and word for word. Tiffany Doe, a former trusted employee of the defendant, Jeffrey E. Epstein, has agreed to provide sworn testimony in this civil case and any other future civil or criminal proceedings, fully verifying the authenticity of the claims of the plaintiff, Katie Johnson. Witness Tiffany Doe was employed by the defendant, Jeffrey E. Epstein, for more than 10 years as a party planner for his underage sex parties. Despite being subject to constant terroristic threats by
the only ones
defendants,
that's guilty are the ones that the people have said
these underage sex
did
parties
something to them. Everybody ain't guilty, Jay.
And preteen girls were used as sex slaves by defendants Epstein
Everybody ain't
and defendant
guilty.
Trump. Witness Tiffany Doe refuses to be silent any longer. She has agreed fully to reveal the extent of the sexual perversion and physical cruelty that she personally witnessed at these parties by defendants Epstein and Trump. That case was withdrawn due to security concerns and
all
and continuing
Republicans
to read from the Epstein files unedited and
are criminals.
Tiffany Doe, a
Apists.
former
That's
trusted
not true.
employee of the
Everybody
defendant,
ain't.
Jeffrey E. Epstein.
I'm not lumping everybody into the dirty bucket.
Future civil or criminal proceedings, fully verifying the authenticity of the claims of the plaintiff, Katie Johnson. Witness Tiffany Doe was employed by the defendant, Jeffrey E. Epstein, for more than 10 years as a party planner for his underage sex parties. Despite being subject to constant terroristic threats by defendants Epstein and Trump to never reveal details of these underage sex parties at which scores of teenagers and preteen girls were used as sex slaves by defendants Epstein and defendant Trump. Witness Tiffany Doe refuses to be silent any longer. She has agreed fully to reveal the extent of the sexual perversion and physical cruelty that she personally witnessed at these parties by defendants Epstein and Trump. That case was withdrawn due to security concerns and threats.
We want the witnesses to come out against
the
Clinton.
stage they've built for us. On one side, the predators in Israel are demanding an attack on Iran, and on
We
the
ain't
other,
discriminating.
the regime in Tehran warns of total exposure. In the middle sits the man they call the leader of the U.S., paralyzed not by his conscience, but by the system.
They want you to believe this is about national lie. It's about the currency of the upper class, blackmail. We now have the proof the mainstream tried to bury, and the DOJ release of the Epstein files confirms it, and we now know the Israeli UN mission didn't just secure Epstein's Manhattan apartments, they wired them. The files show Rafi Shlomo, an Israeli intelligence asset, controlled the surveillance systems at 301 East 66th Street, a place where underage models were housed. Emails from January 2016 prove they could neutralize their enemy from afar. They weren't protecting a prime minister, they were recording his guests. They have the raw feed of every wealthy predator who walked through those doors, including the man currently deciding if we go to war, DT. And don't think the other side is clean. We see the records of Iranian middlemen like Alireza Idihady and Epstein's private logs, moving information on U.S. policy back to Tehran. If the data existed on a centralized network prior to the FBI putting it in their digital vault, every ruler on Earth probably has a copy. They are holding 2,000 videos over DT's head like a guillotine. If he attacks, one side pulls the lever. If he doesn't, the other side does. We, the people, are being marched toward a furnace just to keep their secrets in the dark. They don't care about our lives, they only care about their leverage. It's time to stop being the pawns that fights their wars. When the predators at the top play these games, the only winning move for us is to dismantle the board.
I agree.
Wake up and see the light, because the veil is slipping. We do not forgive, we do not forget. Anonymously enlightening out.
Yeah, but they want us to remain.
Continuing to read from the Epstein files, unedited and word for word. Tiffany Doe, a former trusted employee of the defendant, Jeffrey E. Epstein, has agreed to provide sworn testimony in this civil case and any other future civil or criminal proceedings, fully verifying the authenticity of the claims of the plaintiff, Katie Johnson. Witness
They have yet to bring up one
for more than 10 years as a party planner for his underage sex parties. Despite being subject to constant terroristic threats by defendants Epstein and Trump to never reveal details of these underage sex parties at which scores of teenagers and preteen girls were used as sex slaves by defendants Epstein and defendant Trump. Witness Tiffany Doe refuses to be silent any longer. She has agreed fully to reveal the extent of the sexual perversion and physical cruelty that she personally witnessed at these parties by defendants Epstein and Trump. That case was withdrawn due to security concerns and threats. And continuing to read from the Epstein files, unedited and word for word. Tiffany Doe, a
Yeah. Y'all stuck on stupid. Give us something. Give us, here goes some break. What's breaking now? They got a man. Closed door. Yeah, they Clinton wanted for us to hear it. Trump said, hell no. I'm trying to find a photo leak.
Braces.
I do not.
As we continue to follow this breaking news, Hillary Clinton's Epstein deposition has been paused. That's
Has been paused.
due to a leaked photo. And there's that photo there once again on your screen, the House Oversight Committee's deposition.
So there was a leaked photo. Y'all hear that? A leaked photo. Let's go.
And there's that photo there once again on your screen, The House Oversight Committee's deposition of Hillary Clinton being paused after Republican Representative Lauren Boebert sent this photo on your screen of the closed-door proceeding to a conservative influencer, Benny Johnson. Johnson posting the photo of Clinton at the deposition online and saying Boebert had provided it.
Who leaked it? Wow.
Of the closed-door proceeding to a conservative influencer, Benny Johnson. Johnson posting the photo of Clinton at the deposition online and saying Boebert had provided it. Lauren Boebert sent this photo on your screen of the closed-door proceeding to a conservative. Once again on your screen, the House Oversight Committee's deposition of Hillary Clinton being paused after Republican Representative Lauren Boebert sent this photo on your screen.
Who? A Republican. Why in the world would a Republican leak inside footage of a closed door proceeding? Why would a Republican?
Deposition of Hillary Clinton being paused after Republican Representative Lauren Boebert sent this photo on your screen of the closed-door proceeding to a conservative influencer, Benny Johnson. Johnson posting the photo of Clinton at the deposition online and saying Boebert had provided it. The deposition is being recorded on video, but Comer has said that will only be released after Clinton attorneys have a chance to review it, and the committee's rules do not allow outside press or photographers to take photos of the proceedings. A bit earlier, we learned that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton told U.S. House lawmakers she had no knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein's or Ghislaine Maxwell's crimes. We do have a post here from X that Hillary Clinton put out a bit earlier today, about 4 pages in length, but here's one quote from it. It says, "I have no idea about their criminal activities. I do not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein." Clinton's testimony starts off 2 days of depositions that will also include former President Bill Clinton. Both interviews will be closed to the press, but they will be transcribed and videotaped. And Comer told Fox News Digital on Wednesday that the former first couple's testimony, quote, is critical to understanding Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's sex trafficking network and the ways they sought to curry favor and influence to shield themselves from scrutiny. Now, I wanted to bring you this live look here out of Chappaqua, New York, outside the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center, as we did hear from both Republicans and Democrats a bit earlier today. And we are still anticipating to hear from them once again there. Unclear when that will be happening, but the Clintons' testimony comes after months of back and forth with the committee on the circumstances and conditions of these interviews. The former president's deposition was originally requested in October, and that's according to the House Oversight Committee. It was then moved to December 17th, a date which Clinton declined, citing the need to attend a funeral. The committee then requested the former president provide dates that would work for him in January, to which Clinton again declined. Finally, the committee then issued this follow-up subpoena with a deposition date of January 13th. Clinton failed to appear. Hillary Clinton's deposition was also originally supposed to take place in October and was then moved to December 18th. She also declined, citing the funeral. The same process occurred thereafter. The committee requested the former Secretary of State propose dates in January. She declined, a follow-up subpoena was issued, and she failed to appear. They are two of several people who Comer subpoenaed for information on Epstein back in August, and their attorneys initially pushed back on those subpoenas, calling them legally invalid and a violation of the separation of powers. But House Republicans responded by pressing forward with resolutions to hold both Clintons in contempt of Congress. The lawyers, finally agreed to Comer's terms just days before a full House vote was expected to move forward. Now we're getting into this reaction here from Representative Boebert. This just popping up saying Benny did nothing wrong, proceeding with the depositions. Okay, so some breaking news here. We do know the deposition now proceeding after being paused after that photo was sent by Representative Boebert to influencer Benny Johnson, and it was posted to social media.
But now we are learning here that this proceeding, they are proceeding with the deposition. So you're taking, once again, that live look there outside the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center. If we get any additional comments here from lawmakers, we will bring it to you.
Hold on. This is crazy. This is crazy. This is crazy as hell. Why would they leak it? Why? On purpose. Hold on.
This is Angelo Ernest, advisor to President Clinton. The hearing just went off the record for a moment because it seems, as some of you may have seen, that there were some photographs shared on social media, which is against chamber rules that were read at the top of the meeting. So the hearing has been paused briefly while they figure out where the photo came from and why possibly members of
Yeah, it's against the rules. Crypto. Why do y'all always want to be the ones that break the rules? Huh? Why is it that you people can't follow the damn law? Huh, Crypto? Lock her ass up. You absolutely right. Lock her ass up. And you get out. Always making excuses for them.
Why aren't people on Medicare grabbing the free card before the 12-hour clock runs out? All people on Medicare.
Made by a Democrat member, Summer Lee.
Oh no, we don't want that. Hold on. These people are killing me. They have nothing. Release the full Epstein files. And we won't have to go through this.
MS Nazali Vitale is there in Chappaqua, where this deposition and Bill Clinton's tomorrow are happening. Also with us, Eric Fudali, whose firm represents Epstein's survivors, and former Manhattan Assistant DA Law Professor Rebecca Royfee is here as well. Ali, Chairman Comer spoke a little bit earlier. He said today is going to be a long deposition, but this is not the first time the Clintons have had to answer questions from lawmakers under oath. How do we expect this to go?
Not the first time that they've done it. And look, I have very big doubts that this is going to go longer than that Benghazi hearing. And so, you know,
don't ask me no questions. Put it on a super chat or super sticker. Put all questions on a super chat, super sticker if you want me to answer anything.
One of my colleagues here in the press corps just asked Chairman or Ranking Member Garcia, rather, is what could they possibly talk to Hillary Clinton about for that many hours? I think one of the answers to that might be how the Clinton Global Initiative may have gotten some of its funding. But again, that is more a question for Bill Clinton, not Hillary Clinton.
Why have laws?
I think that consistent throughout this is likely to be what Clinton has to do of redirecting questions, because she is effectively being put in a position here to once again be answering for actions that her husband may or may not have undertaken. And I think that for those of us who have watched Hillary Clinton's career over the course of the last many decades, that is a consistent theme. The New York Times did a great piece on this going back all the way to the 1990s about the way that Hillary Clinton has in the past been forced to answer for her husband's deeds and misdeeds. And this does seem like another chapter in that book. I also think it is a particularly gendered chapter, unsurprisingly.
Yeah, they sound crazy.
I've done in the gender and politics space. I'm
finna fix that.
But I also think then if you draw it back to this investigation and where this might go, the other question that Democrats were just answering is, okay, what precedent does it set if you have prominent Democrats, a former Secretary of State?
Hit the like button. Hit the like button. Yeah, I'm finna put them out. Yeah, because they slow. They slow to the party. I'm gonna put their asses out. Yeah. Yeah. If it was Democrats, they'd be like, lock them up, throw away the key, murderers. Yeah, they'd be doing all that type of crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I'm gonna put you out, all right. I hope you know that. Yeah. Exactly what I'm about to do. Put you out. Because I can do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's her name? Laura? Laura up. Lock her up for leaking information. Yeah, for breaking the law. The rules. Yeah, you know, I just feel like y'all don't have to abide by rules, guidelines, or nothing. These people are crazy. Talking about law and order. Shit. It starts at the top, baby. If you can't get law and order at the top, you damn sure ain't gonna get it at the bottom. You can believe that. Hit the like button, like I said. Did it switch over, Miss Time? Hold on. I don't think it switched over. Law and order. Here, a whole PDFer. Fooling with kids. There we go. Yeah. Slow all of that foolishness down. Now, where were we?
MS Now's Ali Vitale is there in Chappaqua, where this deposition and Bill Clinton's tomorrow are happening. Also with us, Eric Fudali, whose firm represents Epstein survivors, and former Manhattan Assistant DA law professor Rebecca Royfee is here as well. Ali, Chairman Comer spoke a little bit earlier. He said today is going to be a long deposition, but this is not the first time the Clintons have had to answer questions from lawmakers under oath. How do we expect this to go?
Not the first time that they've done it. And look, I have very big doubts that this is going to go longer than that Benghazi hearing. And so you know that Hillary Clinton has done this before. I also know that she was spending yesterday preparing for questions that might be asked. And I think one of the questions that one of my colleagues here in the press corps just asked or Ranking Member Garcia, rather, is what could they possibly talk to Hillary Clinton about for that many hours? I think one of the answers to that might be how the Clinton Global Initiative may have gotten some of its funding. But again, that is more a question for Bill Clinton, not Hillary Clinton. And I think that consistent throughout this is likely to be what Clinton has to do of redirecting questions, because she is effectively being put in a position here to once again be answering for actions that her husband may or may not have undertaken. And I think that for those of us who have watched Hillary Clinton's career over the course of the last many decades, that is a consistent theme. The New York Times did a great piece on this going back all the way to the 1990s about the way that Hillary Clinton has in the past been forced to answer for her husband's deeds and misdeeds. And this does seem like another chapter in that book. I also think it is a particularly gendered chapter, unsurprising given the work that I've done in the gender and politics space, I'm sure to you, Anna. But I also think then if you draw it back to this investigation and where this might go, the other question that Democrats were just answering is, okay, what precedent does it set if you have prominent Democrats, a former Secretary of State and former President of the United States, both being subpoenaed to testify here? Doesn't that open the door for more questions to be asked of Republicans? People like Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. And frankly, he's one of the first people that I thought to ask Chairman James Comer about. And I want to play for you what Comer said when I said, okay, in the spirit of non or bipartisanship, are you going to ask Lutnick to come testify? Listen to what Comer told me.
That's very possible, and I think I think
very
it's a good, possibility that his name will arise in some questioning today.
It'll be on my list, and I have an email I printed off for Hillary to ask about Howard Lutnick today.
Okay.
So
God's watching.
We're asking again, and I want to remind everyone: we've already brought in Alex Acosta and Bill Barr for depositions. That's two Republicans in the Trump administration. So this isn't just about Democrats.
Did your teenager develop depression, anxiety, or eating disorders after becoming addicted to social media platforms?
Trump administration. So this isn't just about Democrats.
Okay, so yes, they did bring in other Republican officials. Bill Barr, of course, the head of the DOJ under Trump in his first term, Alex Acosta, the labor secretary in Trump's first term, but also the prosecutor at the time in Florida who brokered that initial sweetheart deal for Epstein. So, of course, questions to be asked of him. And yet, I also think that if the goal of this investigation is to just ask anyone who comes up in the files about what they knew about Epstein, for someone like Howard Lutnick, he seems to be offering a lot in the public forum consistently about the relationship he had with Epstein, what he saw at Epstein's home. They were neighbors for a short time. And so I do think it's notable that Comer seemed to, at least at first, leave on the table the idea of wanting to talk to Lutnick. And the question now is, if he comes up in a deposition today in whatever capacity, and I'm starting to look into what email that might be that Nancy Mace says she has, if he's brought up in this deposition, does that then mean that the majority who controls subpoena power here will then push towards subpoenaing him? And I have to just add quickly, Anna, the other thing here, if we have Hillary Clinton in here answering for her husband, I think there's also an open question that I've heard a few times today, which is, if that's the case, then will this committee also then want to talk to someone like Melania Trump, who is also mentioned in the files?
All good points, Ali Vitale. You ticked off a lot there. And Howard Lutnick is somebody we heard. Garcia, the ranking member.
What about Melania?
Whatever capacity, and I'm starting to look into what email that might be that Nancy Mace says she has. If he's brought up in this deposition, does that then mean that the majority who controls subpoena power here will then push towards subpoenaing him? And I have to just add quickly, Anna, the other thing here, if we have Hillary Clinton in here answering for her husband, I think there's also an open question that I've heard a few times today, which is, if that's the case, then will this committee also then want to talk to someone like Melania Trump, who is also mentioned in the files?
And we got a picture of her sitting on top of
a lot there.
Epstein lap.
Howard Lutnick is somebody we heard. Garcia, the ranking member, say they wanted to talk to. He also pressed very hardly that they're going to demand the President Trump, that is, be required to testify before lawmakers. I want to note we've seen Hillary Clinton arrive for this deposition that's taking place at the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center today. So as soon as we learn what questions she's been asked, what answers she's giving, we're going to continue to update you right here. Let me come to the table. And Rebecca, the DOJ is saying now it is reviewing some reporting and looking into whether 3 interview memos involving an alleged Trump accuser were withheld from the Epstein files release. We don't know for sure if these files and what these missing FBI interviews actually entailed, whether there were actual accusations against Trump in them. But even before this week's revelation, Secretary Clinton was alleging the White House or the DOJ is trying to cover up something. Do you expect her to lean on that, to bring that up in today's deposition?
I very much do. And look, in any kind of situation where an investigation is being conducted by politicians or by a Department of Justice whose impartiality has been seriously compromised, I think it's very hard for the public to be reassured that what comes out of that
Hold on.
Hold up. If you drive less than 50 miles a day, stop scrolling.
Hold out pardoning her. Why did the Deputy Attorney General spend hours with her? And then why was she transferred to a cushy, lower security prison? Those are important questions. And they're due.
Cover up, the most egregious cover up in American history, intentionally seemed to have redacted more or withheld more than 50 pages of allegations from a minor against President Trump. Do not forget that Kash Patel went in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee and said under oath that the FBI had no credible allegations of any other people being involved in this child sex trafficking operation. These documents that the Department of Justice intentionally has withheld from the American public in regard to the allegations against President Trump came from the FBI. The FBI had interviewed this witness 4 times. You do not do that if it is not serious. So Kash Patel needs to be immediately brought back before the Oversight Committee. He needs to answer these questions again, and we need answers immediately. Again, America is watching. Young people in this country are watching to see if powerful people will continue to protect other powerful people and whether or not Congress will actually hold these perpetrators accountable. Thank you.
Wesley Bell, Missouri's 1st Congressional District, and as a former prosecutor, I've been involved in leading investigations in serious offenses, and this ain't it. What we're seeing is political theater. What we're seeing is folks that are looking for headlines and tweets as opposed to doing the business of going about getting justice for the victims in this case, and survivors in this case, I should say, as well. And I think that that's what I think some of our friends on the other side are losing sight of, is that we are here to make certain that justice is served. And it's important for us, and as oversight members, to do our job to ensure that all the evidence, any information is heard, and that any victims, any survivors, voices are heard as well, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. And so what we're seeing today is we have not learned one new thing. The secretary is here. She is more than happy to have all of you come in there and into this deposition and hear her out.
So we have to be very careful about
there are those on the other side of the aisle who do not
deposition per committee rules, which is why we're demanding right now that James Comer and the Republicans the full transcript where all the questions that were asked will be fully answered by Secretary Clinton. What I can say is that she, again, never met Jeffrey Epstein, never went to the island, never went to the plane, and had no knowledge of any of his crimes. This is completely unacceptable.
When it comes to Howard Lutnick, when Comer went in, he said it's a possibility. When I asked him if Lutnick would be subpoenaed, Mace then said she had an email printed out that she wanted to ask Clinton about. What was that line of questioning like in the room? And was there any discussion about moving forward on a request or a subpoena for Lutnick?
We've made the request of Howard Lutnick. It is unacceptable that we have the Commerce Secretary who has lied and lied and lied about his relationships with Jeffrey Epstein, the fact that he went to the island, he went on the plane, he went into business with Jeffrey Epstein, and yet sat there in a chair with a reporter and lied to the American people. He should resign today. He should be removed from office, and at minimum should come before the committee. I think everyone's been clear that we need to hear from Howard Lutnick.
Can you give us a sense in the room, the questioning in the room?
I'm not. I want all of the secretary's responses to be released immediately, or I want the press to be allowed in to get details.
Can you give us a sense of what it was like in the room? Is this a very tense deposition? And also, can you give a little bit more color of what exactly happened when this moment on social media is shared? Was there back and forth about letting the press inside the room?
So yeah, what I can say is obviously everybody was very taken aback by the committee rules being essentially not enforced and certainly just broken immediately. That is not acceptable. Especially when the secretary said from day one that she wanted the press in the room. When the incident happened, I think this is something that can be reported. The secretary's team continued to demand, even after the incident, to let the press into the room, because what was important for her is that her answers to the questions not be edited, that the video not be edited.
Right.
So we understand that, and we're committed to getting this video transcript out immediately.
And to be clear, she is answering every question.
To be clear, she's answering all the questions.
Taking the fifth at all?
To be clear, she's answering all the questions. I think I can safely say that she's not taking the fifth. Mr. Garcia, last question.
Didn't take the fifth.
Her understanding of her husband's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Is that something that she's been asked about?
I want the full transcripts to be released immediately, and I think everything that she said in her testimony will be clear. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much for coming out.
Let me back up.
And a lot of this obviously ties into Thank you. I'm Ranking Member Robert Garcia for Oversight Democrats. I'm going to make some brief statements, as well my colleagues, and then perhaps a question or two, and then we're going to get back to the deposition. As a reminder, this deposition has now gone on for about 2 hours, 2 hours plus 2.5 hours, and so it will continue throughout the day. And so, going to be also respectful of not being specific, but we do have some overall statements to make. And a lot of this obviously ties into what the Secretary has already put out herself in her opening statement. Just want to begin by just clarifying and putting emphasis on something that's very important, and it's something the Secretary herself has said. Secretary Clinton never met Jeffrey Epstein. She never visited the island. She never flew on his plane. She also had no knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein's horrific crime. So zero knowledge of any wrongdoing. And you've also all heard that directly from her. Secretary Clinton is also completely cooperating with the deposition and the committee, and is answering questions in full faith and in good faith. What is not acceptable is Oversight Republicans breaking their own committee rules that they established.
Their own
with the
rules.
Secretary and her team.
They can't even follow their own
You all
rules.
reported, you've seen by releasing photos. Not acceptable, and it was gracious of the Secretary and her team to continue the deposition.
On the other side of the aisle.
What we also want to say at this very moment is it's becoming more clear every single day is the questions continue to build around this DOJ and the White House and the focus of the majority. We want to understand right now where the missing FBI files are. These are files that accuse the President of the United States about serious accusations around sexual abuse. And the fact that they're not in the files that have been apparently either removed or discarded is incredibly concerning. And so we're calling on Attorney General Pam Bondi to immediately release those files. And lastly, I want to also add that this committee has now set a new precedent about talking to presidents and former presidents. And we're demanding immediately that we ask President Trump to testify in front of our committee and be deposed in front of Oversight Republicans and Democrats. And that should happen immediately. He is the person that appears almost more than anyone else in the committee, and it needs to happen right now.
Mr. Chairman, do you distinguish at all between a president and a former president and a sitting president? I mean, is there something in there? Because they will say, wait a minute, we know what the court ruled on his immunity.
We should depose the person that is mentioned in the Epstein files almost more than any other person next to Ghislaine Maxwell, and that's Donald Trump.
Mr. Rankin,
we're gonna have a couple comments, and then we're gonna.
How did that vote?
I'm gonna answer a couple questions.
Thank you. Thank you. House Republicans need to get serious about this investigation. I understand now fully why Secretary Clinton wanted to make this deposition and her hearing public. Because the reality is we're talking to the wrong person today. Who we should be talking to instead are people who are actually mentioned in the files, people who have made misleading statements about their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Earlier today, Chairman Comer mentioned being open to talking to Secretary Lutnick. Well, let's get him in. Let's talk to Secretary Lutnick instead. Let's talk to someone who is neighbors with Jeffrey Epstein, who actually associated with Jeffrey Epstein, not someone who had never, ever met Jeffrey Epstein to their knowledge. And so let's try to talk about people who will help us with our investigation, and let's release the 2.5 million files so we can know who else to talk to, and so we can do right by the victims and actually bring justice. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Congresswoman Yasmin Ansari, representing Arizona's 3rd District. I am extremely appalled by the Republican chairman's behavior today and by the behavior of the entire committee and how unserious they are about this investigation. Let's remind the country about what we are actually talking about. Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and a list of many rich and powerful people from around the United States and around the world abused and raped more than 1,000 people who were children, many of whom were children at the time. And today we are sitting through an incredibly unserious clown show of a deposition where members of Congress and the Republican Party are more concerned about getting their photo op of Secretary Clinton than actually getting to the truth and holding anyone accountable. I also want to talk about the reporting from this week and the fact that we now know that the Department of Justice, in their ongoing cover-up, the most egregious cover-up in American history, intentionally seem to have redacted more or withheld more than 50 pages of allegations from a minor against President Trump. Do not forget that Kash Patel went in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee and said under oath that the FBI had no credible allegations of any other people being involved in this child sex trafficking operation. These documents that the Department of Justice intentionally has withheld from the American public in regard to the allegations against President Trump came from the FBI. The FBI had interviewed this witness 4 times. You do not do that if it is not serious. So Kash Patel needs to be immediately brought back before the Oversight Committee. He needs to answer these questions again, and we need answers immediately. Again, America is watching. Young people in this country are watching to see if powerful people will continue to protect other powerful people and whether or not Congress will actually hold these perpetrators accountable. Thank you.
Wesley Bell, Missouri's 1st Congressional District, and as a former prosecutor, I've been involved in leading investigations in serious offenses.
I've never heard
this
a
ain't
number
what we're seeing
that
is
almost makes me
theater.
sicker.
What we're seeing
One
is
pizza. It's
folks
one
that
too
are
many.
looking
You're
for
absolutely
headlines
right.
and tweets as opposed to doing the business of going about getting justice for the victims in this case, and survivors in this case, I should say, as well. And I think that that's what I think some of our friends on the other side are losing sight of, is that we are here to make certain that justice is served, and it's important for us, and as oversight members, to do our job to ensure that all the evidence, any information is heard, and that any victims, any survivors' voices are heard as well, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. And so what we're seeing today is we have not learned one new thing.
Nothing.
The secretary is here. She is more than happy to have all of you come in there and into this deposition and hear her out. But there are those on the other side of the aisle who do not want that for whatever reason. And so we're going to continue to push for justice. We're going to continue to work to make certain that the victims and survivors are given their due and their voices are heard and that justice is ultimately served.
Thank you. I'm James Walkinshaw from Virginia's 11th District. The Trump administration's treatment of the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes has been a callous disregard. We've seen that in his refusal to release the files. We saw that this week at the State of the Union with his refusal to acknowledge the survivors who were in the chamber. One of the things that's been confirmed today is that in addition to having no relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, Secretary Clinton has no relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell. But there are important questions we should be asking the Trump administration about Ghislaine Maxwell. And I hope that our Republican colleagues will join us in asking these questions. Why is it that Donald Trump has refused to rule out the pardon, the clemency that Ghislaine Maxwell is campaigning for? We held a deposition in this committee with Ghislaine Maxwell. She used that deposition as an opportunity to campaign for a pardon. Chairman Comer then walked out before many of you and gave her talking points as to why she should get a pardon. Donald Trump needs to direct Attorney General Bondi to release all the files, to unredact the illegal redactions, and he needs to unequivocally rule out a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell, who is a monster, convicted of child sex trafficking. Why has he not ruled out pardoning her? Why did the Deputy Attorney General spend hours with her, and then why was she transferred to a cushy, lower security prison? Those are important questions we should be asking about Ghislaine Maxwell. We no longer have to ask whether there's any relationship between Secretary Clinton and Ghislaine Maxwell. There was not.
Can you give us
I'm going to answer a couple questions. I'm going to answer a question. One second. I'm going to do one statement, then one question. Last thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to begin with a question, is we want to make a very clear demand right now, which is that the full transcript, unedited, of the Secretary's questions and the answers need to be released by the majority in the next 24 hours. We need the public and the American people have a right to know exactly what she said, what questions were asked of her, and how she responded. That's transparency. She herself requested that the press and the public be allowed into the deposition. That was denied. And so at a very minimum, they need to immediately release the full transcript, and we're hopeful that tomorrow, for the former president, that the press would be allowed in and the public as well. That's been the request.
Thank you, Mr. Ranking Member. How did that leaked photo get out, and do you believe there should be any repercussions?
Well, the repercussions should come from the majority and from Chairman Comer. I mean, it was very clear that leaked photo was sent out by a member. I think it's not hard to figure out what member that was by looking at the photo. And the fact it was not just one photo, it was one photo and then a second post that also included a photo as well. And so that was completely against the rules. I think we're grateful that the Secretary continued the deposition, but not acceptable.
You said that this is a very unserious question.
The Secretary's been clear that she has no relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. She's never met Jeffrey Epstein. She said a few times that she has had encounters with Ghislaine Maxwell. She clarified what those meetings were like. Did she talk about Ghislaine Maxwell attending her daughter's wedding? Did you get any new insight into those interactions?
I think, obviously, we can't get into specifics about the answers, but we will get all those as soon as the video is released. And so we have to be very careful about getting specifics about what was actually said in the deposition per committee rules, which is why we're demanding right now that James Comer and the Republicans release the full transcript where all the questions that were asked will be fully answered by Secretary Clinton. What I can say is that she, again, never met Jeffrey Epstein, never went to the island, never went to the plane, and had no knowledge of any of his crimes. This is completely unacceptable.
When it comes to Howard Lutnick, when Comer went in, he said it's a possibility. When I asked him if Lutnick would be subpoenaed, Mace then said she had an email printed out that she wanted to ask Clinton about. What was that line of questioning like in the room, and was there any discussion about moving forward on a request or a subpoena for Lutnick?
We've made the request of Howard Lutnick. It is unacceptable that we have the Commerce Secretary who has lied and lied and lied about his relationships with Jeffrey Epstein, the fact that he went to the island, he went on the plane, he went into business with Jeffrey Epstein, and yet sat there in a chair with a reporter and lied to the American people. He should resign today. He should be removed from office, and at minimum should come before the committee. I think everyone's been clear that we need to hear from Howard Lutnick.
Can you give us a line in the room, the questioning in the room?
I'm not. I want all of the secretary's responses to be released immediately, or I want the press to be allowed in to get details.
Can you give us a sense of what it was like in the room? Is this a very tense deposition? And also, can you give a little bit more color of what exactly happened when this moment on social media is shared? Was there back and forth about letting the press inside the room?
So yeah, what I can say is obviously everybody was very taken aback by the committee rules being essentially not enforced and certainly just broken immediately. That is not acceptable, especially when the secretary said from day one that she wanted the press in the room. When the incident happened, I think this is something that can be reported. The secretary's team continued to demand, even after the incident, to let the press into the room, because what was important for her is that her answers to the questions not be edited, that the video not be edited. And so we understand that, and we're committed to getting this video transcript out immediately.
And to be clear, she's answering every question.
To be clear, she's answering all the questions.
Taking the fifth at all?
To be clear, she's answering all the questions. I think I can safely say that she's not taking the fifth.
Mr. Garcia,
last question.
In terms of her understanding of her husband's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, is that something that she's been asked about?
I want the full transcripts to be released immediately, and I think everything that she said in her testimony will be clear. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much for coming out.
I know, I feel you.
Sound like another cover up for me. Hold on, another cover up.
Getting specific about what was actually said in the deposition per committee rules, so which is why we're demanding right now that James Comer and the Republicans release the full transcript where all the questions that were asked will be fully
Absolutely.
answered. But what I can say is that she, again,
Absolutely.
never met Jeffrey Epstein, never went to the island, never went to the plane, and had no knowledge of any of his crimes. This is completely unacceptable.
When it comes to Howard Lutnick, when Comer went in, he said it's a possibility. When I asked him if Lutnick would be subpoenaed, Mace then said she had an email printed out that she wanted to ask Clinton about. What was that line of questioning like in the room, and was there any discussion about moving forward on a request or a subpoena for Lutnick?
We've made the request of Howard Lutnick. It is unacceptable that we have the Commerce Secretary who has lied and lied and lied about his relationships with Jeffrey Epstein, the fact that he went to the island, he went on the plane, he went into business with Jeffrey Epstein.
Trump's actions and to cover them up despite legitimate calls for answers. If this committee is serious about learning the truth about Epstein's trafficking crimes, it would not rely on press gaggles to get answers from our current president on his involvement. It would ask him directly under oath about the tens of thousands of times he showed up in the Epstein files. If the majority was serious, it would not waste time on fishing expeditions. There is too much that needs to be done. What is being held back, who is being protected, and why the cover-up? My challenge to you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, is the same challenge I put to myself throughout my long service in this nation. How to be worthy of the trust of the American people has given you. They expect statesmanship, not gamesmanship, leading, not grandstanding. They expect you to use your power to get to the truth and to do more to help survivors of Epstein's crimes, as well as the millions more who are victims of sex trafficking. Again, that was the 4-page Secretary Clinton's opening statement that she just read to the
Play that
committee
again.
just moments lines of the fight for going after who show up prominently in the Epstein files, and when you did, not a Ghislaine Maxwell, to exploit their connections to powerful figures such as the Clintons being deposed tomorrow. Among the terms for Hillary Clinton's agreement to comply with this congressional subpoena and participate in the panel's Epstein investigation, she will agree to engage in questions about Epstein and Maxwell's efforts to exploit their connections to powerful figures such as the Clintons to protect themselves from accountability for their alleged sex trafficking crimes, the person said. The Oversight panel has also agreed to discuss the government's mishandling of the Epstein case, which began in Florida long after Bill Clinton left office. Notably, the list agreed upon issues does not include unrelated topics that have long been a fixation among Republicans, such as Hillary Clinton's handling of the 2012 Benghazi attack while she was Secretary of State, or her use of a private email server for official communications.
About, I probably didn't see it.
President in 2016.
Monty, I probably missed it.
Neither Bill nor Hillary Clinton has been accused of wrongdoing in connection with Epstein. Hillary Clinton has maintained that she has no memory of meeting Epstein.
Okay, I'm bad.
Bill Clinton has admitted to using Epstein's plane on several occasions, but has maintained he never visited the island. Both have said that they have no knowledge of his crimes.
I know, I don't see it, Monty.
All right, everyone, I do want to now read to you Hillary Clinton's statement. It was just released on her X. I want to bring this here to you. This is the opening statement that she is giving during this deposition. So let me read that to you right now on Live Now from Fox. It goes as, Mr. Chairman, ranking member, members of the committee, as a former senator, I have respect for legislative oversight, and I expect its exercise, as do the American people, to be principled and fearless in pursuit of truth and accountability. As we all know, however, too often congressional investigations are partisan political theater, which is an abdication of duty and an insult to the American people. The committee justified its subpoena to me based on its assumption that I have information regarding the investigations into the criminal activities of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Let me be as clear as I can. I do not. As I stated in my sworn declaration back on January 13th, I had no idea about their criminal activities. I do not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein. I never flew on his plane or visited his island, homes, or offices. I have nothing to add to that. Like every decent person, I have been horrified by what we have learned about their crimes. It's unfathomable that Mr. Epstein initially got a slap on the wrist back in 2008, which allowed him to continue his predatory practices for another decade. Mr. Chairman, your investigation is supposed to be assessing the federal government's handling of the investigations and prosecutions of Epstein and his crimes. You subpoenaed 8 law enforcement officials, all of whom ran the Department of Justice or directed the FBI when Epstein's crimes were investigated and prosecuted. Of those 8, only 1 appeared before the committee. 5 of the 6 former attorney generals were allowed to submit brief statements stating they had no information to provide. You have had 0 public hearings, refused to allow the media to attend them, including today, despite espousing the need for transparency on dozens of occasions. You have made little effort to call the people who show up prominently in the Epstein files, and when you did, not a single Republican member showed up for Les Wexner's deposition.
Trump. Right?
It goes on to say,
You're right.
Institutional failure
Just
is designed to protect one political party and one political official rather than to seek truth and justice for the victims and survivors, as well as the public who also want to get to the bottom of this matter.
Poland has
My heart
opened
breaks for the
their own
survivors,
investigation
and
to the
I
Epstein
am
file.
furious
Yeah,
on
Poland
their
and
behalf.
another country
I've spent
did
my
too, I
life
think.
advocating for women and girls. I have worked hard to stop the terrible abuses so many women and girls face here around the world, including human trafficking, forced labor, and sexual slavery. For too long, these have been largely invisible crimes or not treated as crimes at all, but the survivors are real and they are entitled to better. In Southeast Asia, I met girls as young as 12 years old who were forced into prostitution and raped repeatedly. Some were dying of AIDS. In Eastern Europe, I met mothers who told me that they lost daughters to trafficking and did not know where to turn. In settings around the world, I met survivors trying to rebuild their lives and help rescue others with little support from people in power, who too often turned a blind eye and a cold shoulder. If you are new to this issue, let me tell you, Jeffrey Epstein was a heinous individual, but he's far from alone. This is not a one-off tabloid sensation or a political scandal. It's a global problem with an unimaginable human toll. My work combating sex trafficking goes back to my first days as First Lady. I worked to pass the first federal legislation against trafficking and was proud that my husband signed the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, which increased support for survivors and gave prosecutors better tools for going after traffickers. As Secretary of State, I appointed a former federal prosecutor to ramp up our global anti-trafficking efforts. I oversaw nearly 170 anti-trafficking programs in 70 nations and directly pressed foreign leaders to crack down on trafficking networks in their countries. Every year, we published a global report to shine a light on abuses. The findings of those reports triggered sanctions on countries failing to make progress, so they became a powerful diplomatic tool to drive concrete action. I insisted that the United States be included in the report for the first time ever back in 2011 because we must hold ourselves not just the same standard as the rest of the world, but to an even higher one. Sex trafficking and modern slavery should have no place in America. None. The Secretary Clinton's opening statement continues, saying the Trump administration gutted the trafficking in persons office at the State Department, cutting more than 70% of the career civil and foreign service experts who worked so hard to prevent trafficking crimes. The annual trafficking report required by law was delayed for months. The message from the Trump administration to the American people and the world could not be clearer. Combating human trafficking is no longer an American priority under the Trump White House. This is a tragedy. It's a scandal. It deserves vigorous investigation and oversight. A committee endeavoring to stopping human trafficking would seek to understand what specific steps are needed to fix a system that allowed Epstein to get away with his crimes back in 2008. A committee run by elected officials with a commitment to transparency would ensure the full release of all the files. It would ensure that the lawful redactions of those files protected the victims and survivors, not powerful men and political allies. It would go and get to the bottom of reports that DOJ withheld FBI interviews in which a survivor accuses President Trump
I'm gonna look it up, Monty. Hold on.
It would subpoena anyone who asked on which night there would be the wildest party on Epstein's island. It would demand testimony from prosecutors in Florida and New York about why they gave Epstein a sweetheart deal and chose not to pursue others who may have been implicated. It would demand that Secretary Rubio and Attorney General Bondi testify about why this administration is abandoning survivors and playing into the hands of traffickers. It would seek out officers not on the front lines of the fight and ask them what support they need. It would be put forth legislation to provide more resources and force the administration to act, but that's not
I know
happening.
they know Hillary
Instead,
was
you
gonna
have
be
compelled
ready.
me to testify, fully aware that I have no knowledge that would assist you in the investigation in order to
This is a deflection
attention
of
for
Trump.
President Trump's actions and to cover them up despite legitimate calls for answers. If this committee is serious about learning the truth about Epstein's trafficking crimes, it would not rely on press gaggles to get answers from our current president on his involvement. It would ask him directly under oath about the tens of thousands of times he showed up in the Epstein files. If the majority was serious, it would not waste time on fishing expeditions. There is too much that needs to be done. What is being held back, who is being protected, and why the cover-up? My challenge to you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, is the same challenge I put to myself throughout my long service in this nation. How to be worthy of the trust of the American people has given you. They expect statesmanship, not gamesmanship, leading, not grandstanding. They expect you to use your power to get to the truth and to do more to help survivors of Epstein's crimes, as well as the millions more who are victims of sex trafficking. Again, that was the 4-page Secretary Clinton's opening statement that she just read to the committee just moments ago. And again, we are waiting for more key updates coming from inside this.
Hold on. I'm trying to stall for them to come on with it. They act like they had something. They act like they had something. So it's saying, I hope this is true. All 5 Nordic countries announced to arrest Netanyahu under ICC and ICJ if he enters their airspace or land in their European countries. There is no airspace available for Netanyahu to reach New York. I hope that's true. Hold on, let me see if I can find. You said Poland? I hope that's true. Let me see if there's an update before.
Only Brawny has 3 flies, and it's stronger than any other brand.
This is an everyday invitation to feel alive. It's a multivitamin and a mindset. So nourish
you. Happening now, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is testifying before the House Oversight Committee. Lawmakers want to know about their ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The Clintons have not been accused of any wrongdoing by Epstein's victims. The Clintons had pushed for public hearings as part of the committee's probe into Epstein, but these depositions are happening behind closed doors. ABC's Perry Russom is in New York.
The Republican-led investigation into convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein now focuses on 2 of the most high-profile Democrats, former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
No one's accusing at this moment the Clintons of any wrongdoing. They're going to have due process, but we have a lot of questions.
Over the next 2 days, the Clintons will be deposed by the House Oversight Committee behind closed doors near their home in Chappaqua, New York. Hillary Clinton going first today, followed by the former president tomorrow. According to 2 people familiar with the agreement, the deposition will focus on a range of topics, including how the government allegedly mishandled an inquiry into Jeffrey Epstein and convicted associate Ghislaine Maxwell, and how Epstein allegedly used powerful people to protect him. Hillary Clinton has long denied ever having any relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Bill Clinton was friendly with Epstein for years. Both have never been accused of wrongdoing by Epstein survivors, and both deny any knowledge of Epstein's crimes. Not long after Epstein's arrest in July 2019, a spokesperson for Bill Clinton said in a statement that the former president had not spoken to Epstein in well over a decade.
We have said from day one that we want to talk to former President Bill Clinton. And the other person we want to talk to is current President Donald Trump.
The Clintons agreeing to sit down with lawmakers after months of negotiating. For weeks, the Clintons refused to testify, calling the committee subpoenas legally invalid, and proposed a 4-hour transcribed interview instead. The Clintons' lawyer argued the couple has no information relevant to the committee's investigation of the federal government's handling of investigations into Epstein and Maxwell. Republicans moved to hold them in contempt of Congress, and that's when the Clintons agreed to be deposed. The depositions will be recorded on video and transcribed. That is in accordance with House rules. They could be released in the coming days. Perry Russom, ABC News, New York.
And joining us now is Ankush Kaduri, a former federal prosecutor and now a senior writer for Politico magazine. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
So these depositions are taking place after a lot of back and forth, where Congress at one point threatened to find the Clintons in contempt. Why do you believe this is happening now?
Okay, this is a very good question. I think two different sets of reasons have converged. One, last year when Trump was coming under some pressure surrounding the withholding of the Epstein files, Jamie Comer, who is the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, sort of began this investigation that I think was supposed to sort of run interference for Trump, which is why he wants to talk to the Clintons and things like that at the same time that he has said that Trump has been exonerated by the Epstein files. So this, this is from Comer's perspective, I think, a purely partisan exercise. Democrats, however, you just played some sound from Ranking Member Robert Garcia, have been okay to join this process because I think they believe it will set a precedent for them to be able to call Trump to testify in the future on the same topics. I question the premise, but I do think that's why this is happening and why both parties are on board.
What are you expecting to learn from these depositions? I mean, what will actually be made public?
So first of all, I'm sure there will be some sort of readouts from members throughout the course of the day, maybe some fair or unfair leaks. But at some point they may choose to make all the video available to the public. I have a hard time seeing why this is even happening, to be honest. So, I'm sure that there will be a bunch of uncomfortable questions for them. I don't even really know why Hillary Clinton is being bothered by this at all. But nevertheless, I'm sure there'll be a bunch of rooting around. But again, it's very hard for me to take this seriously as an investigative matter when the person who has organized this and who is so insistent that this happened, Jamie Comer, is saying that Trump has somehow been exonerated. I mean, this is not a serious exercise.
And we mentioned that there was a round of negotiations that went on to even get to this point, and we know they agreed to discuss 5 topics. Can you explain how that process actually works?
Well, yeah. I mean, anytime you have sort of testimony, and this is in a variety of different settings, in the legal settings, investigative, congressional, whatever, people want to have some assurance that there will be, that the questions will be constrained to certain topics. I have no idea how, they sort of came to terms, whether it was an email or some sort of written material, but, you want to make sure that the questions are focused and not running very far afield, particularly because I'm sure if you're the Clintons, and particularly Hillary Clinton, this is not your first rodeo with an antagonistic congressional committee, right? She famously had to go, I think, 11 hours on the Benghazi hearing, running a whole host of topics. So if you're them, I can certainly see why you would want to, circumscribe the questions to the matters that are actually relevant.
So what happens next after this is over?
After their testimony is over? Look, I think we will get some characterizations of what they said. What remains to be seen, I would be surprised if anything emerged that indicated that they were aware of, much less involved in any criminal activity. And then I think, we may see these released down the line. And, I think the Republicans intend to continue this investigation in some capacity. Certainly the Democrats, the ranking member intends to really pursue it if they pick up the House in the midterms and he takes the gavel. He has said he intends to really push this investigation aggressively and subpoena a whole bunch of people.
All right. More to come on this. Ankush Kaduri, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I'm finna get ready to go. I can't get y'all to hit the like button. So I'm finna show this about Poland. I need for y'all to hit the like button. Double tap the face of the screen. Hit the like button, the 3 dots at the top right corner. Or leave, please.
As it's looking into pop.
Did you hear me? I need for y'all to pay attention to the words that are coming out of my mouth. Hit the like button or leave. Yeah. It's just that simple. Like now. Hello, Josie. You ain't going nowhere, Miss Tom.
Possible connections between convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein and Russian intelligence services. The announcement came after the U.S. Justice Department last week released millions more files related to the federal investigation into Epstein. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said Tuesday, quote, more and more leads, more and more information, and more commentary in the global press all relate to the suspicion that this unprecedented pedophilia scandal was co-organized by Russian intelligence services. David Charter joins us now. He's the assistant editor in the U.S. for The Times. Why is Poland taking this step?
Good evening, Lindsay. Yes, I think this is a sign of deep sensitivity in Poland, which, bear in mind, shares a border with part of Russia and has long felt that it could be in Vladimir Putin's crosshairs after Ukraine. That it is constantly on the alert for any signs of espionage that could compromise its security. And here we see Donald Tusk, the Prime Minister, growing increasingly alarmed at the
pinned at the
of
top.
evidence emerging about links between Jeffrey Epstein
Kimber, I think it's pinned at the
and
top.
Russia in the Epstein files, because the type of photographs and material the type of photographs taken by Epstein and the sort of material and personal secrets that he was gathering suggest a type of harvesting of compromat, which is the Russian word used for compromising material of the type that was gathered by Russia in the Epstein files, because the type of photographs and material the type of photographs taken by Epstein and the sort of material and personal secrets that he was gathering suggest a type of harvesting of compromat, which is the Russian word used for compromising material of the type that was gathered by the FSB security agency to blackmail senior people into divulging sensitive information. And Tusk's got this inquiry to find out if any of that could have implications for Poland.
Based on what we know so far, how often do these files mention Russia or Putin?
So so far to date, we've had more than 10,000 references to Russia or Moscow, and over 1,000 personally naming Vladimir Putin in the files. And a lot of, if you join the dots, a lot of mentions with famous and wealthy people getting caught up somehow with Russians, organized by Epstein, who provided and flew over women from Russia for liaisons with his wealthy friends. That's one reason for the British interest, of course, is the former Prince Andrew was set up for a dinner with a young Russian lady, a 26-year-old beautiful Russian lady, according to an Epstein email back in 2010. But not just that, there are lots of emails now, more than half a dozen, suggesting attempts by Epstein to meet Putin, or actual meetings that could have implications for Poland.
Based on what we know so far, how often do these files mention Russia or Putin?
So so far to date, we've had more than 10,000 references to Russia or Moscow, and over 1,000 personally naming Vladimir Putin in the files.
Yeah, we're praying for specs.
If you join the dots, a lot of mentions with famous and wealthy people getting caught up somehow with Russians, organized by Epstein, who provided and flew over women from Russia for liaisons with his wealthy friends. That's one reason for the British interest, of course, is the former Prince Andrew was set up for a dinner with a young Russian lady, a 26-year-old beautiful Russian lady, according to an Epstein email back in 2010. But not just that, there are lots of emails, now more than half a dozen, suggesting attempts by Epstein to meet Putin, or actual meetings that were arranged. We just don't know. We don't have concrete evidence whether they actually occurred yet. But on almost every year from 2011 right through to 2018, there are meetings being arranged or attempted to be arranged between them.
Has the Russian government said anything about the files?
So this week, the Kremlin has said that it has no record of any offers from Epstein to meet with Vladimir arranged. We just don't know. Now more than half a dozen suggesting attempts by Epstein to meet Putin, or actual meetings that were arranged. We just don't know. We don't have concrete evidence whether they actually occurred yet. But on almost every year from 2011 right through to 2018, there are meetings being arranged or attempted to be arranged between them.
Has the Russian government said anything about the files?
So this week, the Kremlin has said that it has no record of any offers from Epstein to meet with Vladimir Putin. We know that he met with the former foreign minister of Russia to actually give him his views on Donald Trump around the time of the 2016 election. But we do know, despite the Kremlin's denials, that they have in the recent past referred to the Epstein files to point out the hypocrisy of the West, for example, in a sign of retribution, perhaps, or for attacks on Moscow, saying, look to the problems in your own backyard. It's all shown by this Epstein affair.
David Charter, thank you.
Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are crashing in the polls heading into the midterms, and now...
Hold on. Y'all, I need for y'all to hit the like button.
Hillary Clinton heads to Capitol Hill today to give a deposition behind closed doors. Let's roll through some Epstein updates for you today. First of all, unearthed audio from the radio program Howard Stern many years ago is making the rounds again in the context of these files that the DOJ appears to have withheld that relate to an accusation against President Trump, which we'll get to in a moment. We'll also talk about Bill Gates, who has now admitted to a couple of affairs with some Russian sex workers and apologized for that. We'll talk about whether there's some blackmail potential involved there when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein. But let's roll this Trump clip that is surging around the internet again. This is B3.
What is the best thing about being Donald Trump right now?
Well, other than the fact I'm married, okay?
Right.
And I'm very happily married. I have a great wife. But if I weren't married, I'd be able to get all of the girls I want, except for possibly Robin.
Do you think you could now be banging 24-year-olds?
Oh, absolutely. I have no trouble.
Would you do it?
I have no problem.
Yeah, do you have an age limit, or would you?
No, I have no age. I mean, I have an age. I don't want to be
the
like
upper bracket,
yeah. Foley with 12-year-olds.
Can I make a prediction for you?
Yes.
I say you have one more marriage.
13, 14, 15,
Well,
16,
that's nice. I'm sure Melania will love to hear.
17.
Okay, so this is the time, Crystal, well,
He's got his lines, Ryan.
Yeah.
12-year-olds, it's too far.
This was the kind when the Mark Foley scandal was going around. I believe this was the 2006 midterms. Is that right? This was a Republican congressman who was creeping on interns. Not 12. I don't think 12-year-olds, but maybe it went.
They're like high school sophomores, I think.
So it might have gone pretty low. Like, the disgusting creature. And he was forced to resign because the chats came out. It was like this early internet thing where people realized that you could catch people in bad behavior because the internet was saving
what they were doing. So that's his reference to Foley there. Even Howard Stern is like, you're an old man. 24 seems a little young for you. Trump's like, absolutely not. But he does draw the line at 12.
12.
So
13,
yeah,
14,
that's
15,
our president.
16.
I believe this might be the same interview where he talked
What you mean,
about
knock it
how
off?
the
That's
reason
that's
he
coming
bought
from him.
Miss
That's
Teen Universe
that's
or Miss
old.
Teen USA, whichever one
Baby.
he
I don't know
purchased,
where you
was
been.
so that he
All of the girls I want, except for possibly Robin.
Do you think you could now be banging 24-year-olds?
Oh, absolutely. I have no trouble.
Would you do it?
I have no problem.
Yeah, do you have an age limit or would you?
If I have no age. I mean, I have an age. I don't want to be
The
like
upper bracket,
Congressman
yeah.
Foley with 12-year-olds.
Can I make a prediction for you?
Yes.
I say you have one more marriage in you.
Well, that's nice. I'm sure Melania will love to hear it.
Okay, so this is the time, Crystal, well,
He's got his lines, Ryan.
Yeah.
12-year-olds, it's too far.
this was the kind of when the Mark Foley scandal was going around. I believe this was the 2006 midterms. Is that right? This was a Republican congressman who was creeping on interns. Not 12. I don't think 12-year-olds, but maybe it went.
They're like high school sophomores, I think.
So it might have gone pretty low. Like the disgusting creature, and he was forced to resign because the chats came out. It was like this early internet thing where people realized that you could catch people in bad behavior because the internet was saving what they were doing. So that's his reference to Foley there. Even Howard Stern is like, you're an old man. 24 seems a little young for you. Trump's like, absolutely not. But he does draw the line at 12.
12.
12.
Do y'all not remember that?
That's our president. I believe this might be the same interview where he talked about how the reason he bought Miss Teen Universe or Miss Teen USA, whichever one he purchased, was
for possibly Robin.
Do you think you could now be banging 24-year-olds?
Oh, absolutely. I have no trouble.
Would you do it?
I have no problem.
Yeah, do you have an age limit or would you?
No, I have no age. I mean, I have an age. I don't want to be
The
like
upper bracket,
Congressman
yeah.
Foley with 12-year-olds.
Can I make a prediction for you?
Yes.
I say you have one more marriage in you.
Well, that's nice. I'm sure Melania will love to hear it.
okay. So
do y'all not remember that?
Crystal, well,
He's got his lines, Ryan.
Yeah.
12-year-olds, it's too far.
This was the kind of when the Mark Foley scandal was going around. I believe this was the 2006 midterms. Is that right? This was a Republican congressman who was creeping on interns. Not 12. I don't think 12-year-olds, but maybe it went.
They're like high school sophomores, I think.
So it might have gone pretty low. Like the disgusting creature, and he was forced to resign because the chats.
I don't have
came out. It was
time.
like
I thought
this
you
early
asked for
internet
my
thing
super
where
chat.
People realized that you could catch people in
I mean
bad
my
behavior
cash
because
app.
the internet was saving what they were.
I don't
what they
have
were doing.
time.
So that's his reference to Foley there. Even Howard Stern is like, you're an old man. 24 seems a little young for you. Trump's like, absolutely not. But he does draw the line at 12. So that's our president. I believe this might be the same interview where he talked about how the reason he bought Miss Teen Universe or Miss Teen USA, whichever one he purchased, was so that he could walk into the locker room while the young teens were changing and creep on them. And his daughter Ivanka later was asked about that, and she said, "Oh yeah, that absolutely sounds like something my dad would do." And the teen girls also said publicly, "Yeah, it was creepy, and he would do that." So it's one of these just in your face moments.
Completely. And let's put B1 up on the screen. You've got a bunch of shout out to Roger Sullenberger, independent journalist who first unearthed some of these hidden files. You've had NPR, New York Times, and other outlets now who have confirmed it. This latest revelation comes from CNN, where they've built on some of the reporting and identified additional missing files. Now, the key ones that people have been focused on, to your point, Ryan, are about these allegations from a woman made them at the time, but she was a girl, a 13-year-old girl, when she alleges that she was sexually assaulted by Donald Trump. And this is initially in the files as coming in on the FBI's anonymous tip line, which people kind of looked at and like, yeah, anyone can just call in and make some sort of allegation. But what we have now learned is that she was deemed credible enough to have come in for 4 different interviews. And those interviews were not contained in the files that were released. That is a flagrant violation, as far as we can tell, of the law here. No specific explanation has been offered as to why they were withheld, and we do know that Ghislaine Maxwell was given access to those interviews in the context of discovery for her trial. So now you have CNN saying dozens of FBI witness interviews from the investigation of Jeffrey Epstein appear to be missing from the massive trove of files released by the Department of Justice last month, according to a CNN review, including 3 interviews related to a woman who accused Trump of sexually assaulting her decades ago. An evidence log provided to attorneys for Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell includes serial numbers for about 325 FBI witness interview records, but more than 90 of those records, over a quarter of the list, do not appear to be present on the DOJ website. Among those missing records are those 3 interviews related to a woman who told agents Epstein had repeatedly abused her starting when she was approximately 13, and who also accused Trump of sexually assaulting her. So, if she was 13, she would have made his 12-year-old cutoff there, Ryan.
Right.
But in any case, what CNN is finding here is it's not only those interviews that are missing, there are a lot of other witness interviews which have been excluded from the files. And, that is unacceptable. The government has to offer some sort of specific reason, and there's limited exceptions why files would be, withheld or for redactions. So, the blatant, brazen nature of this cover-up continues to be exposed.
Yeah, and so to be fair to Trump here, which we always endeavor to do here at Breaking Points, one of these women sued the estate, did not mention Trump when suing the Epstein estate, and had that suit tossed. There are a lot of problems that you can cite with people who've been able to get compensation from the Epstein estate. There are a lot of criticism that that girls, and not girls, but women who were adults and were involved in recruiting refashioned themselves as victims and were able to get payoffs from the Epstein estate, and that the bar was not terribly high for proving that you deserved some kind of compensation from the Epstein estate. So the fact that she was unable to get that from the Epstein estate and did not mention Trump, and I believe claims that happened in Southern California, and I don't think there's, Mark Epstein is saying that his brother never summered or what that wouldn't have been there. There's a lot of, and the FBI ultimately found the complaint to be not credible, which is probably then why they pulled it. But it's illegal to pull it. That's not what the Epstein Files Transparency Act says. That you can't just say, well, we don't think that this allegation is credible, so we're not going to post it because it's about the president. No, the act says you have to post it. So then there's the other one seems to be involves Mar-a-Lago, and that one seems to be more credible. So just putting that out there in the interest of Trump.
And the other one being, the details there are that she does not allege that she was sexually assaulted by Trump, but she alleges that she was, introduced to Trump at a young age, and Trump was kind of leering at her. And, Epstein said, oh, well, this is a good one, isn't it? And they sort of laughed, and she was like, what the hell is going on here? So it doesn't, again, there's no allegation of wrongdoing by the president outside of knowledge of what is going on here and providing some insight into, just exactly how intimately he was involved in the disgusting and depraved and illegal activities of Jeffrey Epstein.
Right,
yeah, I need the likes up. I'm 3 hours in. It makes no sense. I need the likes up. I'm going out the way to bring you the tea, and this makes no sense. Hit the 3 dots at the top corner right, or double tap the face of your phone if you're listening in on your phone device. Thank you, Miss Tom. I needed to make it to the algorithm. They gotta hit the like button. Hi, Michael.
We know in the 2002, was it Vanity Fair or maybe New York Magazine article about
Vanity Fair.
Epstein, there's a quote from Trump where he says, he
likes him young.
He loves him young, likes him young.
Yeah.
So like,
And Mar-a-Lago is known to have been a key hunting ground, actually, for Ghislaine in particular. And that's where Virginia Giuffre was working at 16 years old when she was, recruited in and groomed and ends up trafficked by them.
And which, according to Trump, not according to Trump, but in fairness to Trump, that he then got upset with them for poaching Virginia away from there. Like, so there was anyway, just bending over backwards to be fair to Trump here. But yes, did he know? Yeah, he knew. And actually in the files, according to the, Dade County, what county is Palm Beach in? Is it Dade County? The sheriff there said that Trump called and said, glad you got this guy, like he's creep. So you can say A, that is credit to Trump, B, it's full knowledge of what he was doing, and he maintained a friendship with the guy for about 20 years. And then before early 80s to 2000s, before having a falling out over a real estate transaction.
Yeah.
And so
this is all
right.
The story we've been giving anyway. I think it's Palm Beach County, isn't it?
Who is Courtney?
Sounds right. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll go with that. We've also got a couple other, and let's put B5 up on the screen
Hey,
here.
hello,
Actually,
Kitty.
so Larry Summers was all over these files, asking Epstein for lady advice and all sorts of things. And so he has now been completely forced out at Harvard University, and he'd already been forced to. They finally got him out at Center for American Progress. Crazy, he was still involved over there, but that's another topic for another day. In any case, he'd been forced to step down from various leadership positions and board. Now he's been forced out of his professorship entirely over his Epstein ties. So we're not getting legal repercussions here in the United States, but we are getting a little bit of corporate cancel culture repercussions. I was telling Sagar it makes me a little more sympathetic towards cancel culture, since apparently that's the only way that we get any elite accountability here in the United States. So I guess we'll take what we can get with that. And then put B4 up on the screen. This is some new revelations about a Democratic governor of the Virgin Islands, who was, providing favors to Jeffrey Epstein, leading right up until his arrest in 2019 for child sex crimes. So according to Mediaite, just months before his 2019 arrest, Jeffrey Epstein was being helped by U.S. Virgin Islands Governor Albert Bryan Jr. And Virgin Islands, of course, are his island is part of the Virgin Islands. So he maintained very close relationships with all of the politicians there, so he could, do whatever he needed to do on his quote unquote pedophile island, Little St. James. And this original reporting, by the way, was from CNN. After Epstein was ordered to stop unauthorized construction on Little St. James and Great St. James in the U.S. Virgin Islands, the serial sex offender went to Bryan for help, according to the network. Text messages from 2019 reviewed by CNN show Bryan, a Democrat, telling Epstein he had spoken with the territory's top environmental official and asked him to pause enforcement until they could discuss the matter. As Epstein complained about possible mounting fines and negative press coverage, Bryan later wrote he had asked the commissioner overseeing the case to recuse himself and concede on all previous permit requests. In one text message to Epstein, the Democratic governor wrote, "We got you." In another exchange, after Epstein asked Bryan whether he could spare 15 minutes, the governor quickly responded, "For you, absolutely." Isn't that a lovely story of friendship?
It's so nice. It's about the friends that we make along the way. It truly is. And so, meanwhile, speaking of friends that people made along the way, Bill Gates, we put up B2 here, has apologized to staff and said that, okay, yes, I did have affairs with, quote, two
they know
Russian
Bill
women.
coming.
And that Epstein
They know
later
Bill coming.
found out about these affairs. Epstein paid for one of the women's education, which was, you go through the files, he's constantly dangling, and this is what's, another layer of darkness on top of it. These women wanted wanted an education, wanted to improve their lot in life, and they saw their relationship, with Epstein and his network as a way of getting that thing that society makes so hard for people, which is just to get ahead, get an education, and get ahead. And he's constantly dangling that in front of them, and oftentimes not delivering on it. In this case, he did pay for one of the women's education. Then he had Bill Gates pay him back, which I cannot understand this world of billionaires. Like, are you serious? If I'm out with a friend at like Chick-fil-A, I'm picking up their Chick-fil-A. It's fine. Like, or the friend will be like, you know what, I got you this time. Like, that's what you do for friends. So he picks up Bill Gates's mistress's education and then invoices him for it. Like, what is going on here? Like, they're both billionaires. Can't pick up each other's mistresses' college bills and just say, you get the next one. Like,
Yeah, you need to see the text from the, from the Virgin Islands governor. I got you, right?
I got you. I got you. Hey, let me get that tablet. No. I got this one. You get the next one. Like, for some reason, this one is like, what is wrong with these people? So it looks like what Epstein really had in mind, because I'm kidding, like, this is not in the top 10 of their most depraved characteristics, but it's one of them. I think what Epstein really wanted is some paper trail that he could then hold over Bill Gates, at which
You're so much better at understanding the criminal mind than I am. Must be your reporting.
Because he been in this for too long. So he then does try to implicitly use it against Gates, as Gates suggests here. That and because he's got the paper trail, he's got him.
And apparently, so some of what we've gleaned from the files is, in the context of like Leon Black and Steve Tisch. It seems like Epstein has these young women in his orbit and, pays for their dentistry and dangles a modeling career or whatever. And then he farms them out to his rich, depraved, quote unquote, friends. And so they are trafficked directly by him. What it looks like with Bill Gates is that these women, as far as we can tell, did not come directly from the Epstein network. But nevertheless, Epstein found out about it and realized, oh, this is an angle I can work. This is a piece of information that can be useful to me in the future. And, lo and behold, years later, when Bill Gates is probably under pressure from his wife and tries to pull away from his relationship to Epstein, that's when Epstein writes this memo to himself of, oh, well, here's all the things I know about this dude, and that he definitely wouldn't want to come out, including that he contracted some sort of STD from one of these Russian women and didn't want his wife to find out, so was trying to, use Epstein to procure antibiotics to slip surreptitiously to his wife. Is what Epstein wrote in the memo to himself anyway. So we haven't gotten confirmation specifically from Bill Gates on that particular part, but, this would seem to confirm some key aspects of what Epstein was more memorializing there to himself.
And what a couple of people who knew Epstein told me was that it was very hard to get rid of him. And these are not people who had problematic relationships with him, so they were doing some self-justification, but people who knew him and knew his world, that it wasn't as easy as he wasn't taking the hint. You know what, Jeff, I don't think we're going to be buddies anymore. I don't think we're going to hang out anymore. It was much more of a mafia thing. Oh, no. That is not how this goes. We are still involved. You are not getting rid of me. You can see that in the Leon Black emails that the New York Times and others reported on.
Thank you, Terrell Walters, for the laughing bestow.
Paying, millions of dollars to him going forward. And so Epstein, along the way, knows he's not going to let this person get away. And so what do you do along the way? You build up enormous amounts of compromising information. So you don't even have to use it, although it does appear that he used it with Gates. Just them knowing that you have it means that it's easier then for these men to just continue, be like, okay, you know what, I can't get out of it's going to it could blow up my entire life if I try too hard to extract myself from this relationship that that I know I should not have gotten in. And then on the flip side, you're like, I do have a lot of fun with him. The island's nice. And all the depraved things that we do kind of like those things. So
yeah, and he introduced me to this person and that person. I made this deal with him.
Yeah.
He got me, and he's helping me with my Nobel Peace Prize aspirations. Apparently, in the context of Bill Gates, that was something that
he would be the guy. He knew the Norwegians, and he had he blew up the entire Norwegian political system. So yeah, he's gonna help you get your Nobel. So.
Incredible, yeah. And people, some of the skeptics will say like, oh, well, if all these people like knew about this world and all this way he was operating, surely one of them would have come forward and blown the whistle. And it's like when you dig into each of these relationships, you understand why no one did, because if you're Bill Gates, you don't want your wife to know that you had these two affairs and that you got an STD and tried to slip her surreptitious antibiotics. You're not looking, if you're Jess Staley, to have the emails revealed where you're saying, hey, I had a great time with Snow White and maybe the next Disney princess I should try on is Beauty and the Beast. You're not really excited about that stuff coming to light. So it's mutually assured destruction, and you keep your mouth shut because that's what's best for you.
Yeah, and lots of people over the years, whether it's Maria Farmer or Conchita Sarnoff or like Tina Brown, like plenty of people tried to blow the whistle throughout years. Too. And there's no mechanism for accountability within elite circles. So if you come out and say there's no calling the police. There's no I'm going to press charges through this vehicle that we have. It would be assumed that you have you're either a gold digger or you had some business deal that went south with Epstein that isn't our business. So you guys sort this out. There's no way to actually hold people in these elite circles accountable. And so I've seen a lot of people complaining this is becoming a moral panic. Okay, let's say it is. Then set up a system of accountability for the elites. If you have an elite class that is immune from any accountability, do not complain when the public produces its own mechanisms of accountability against them. Yes. I saw Graham Plattner picking up and making that argument, which is, I think, exactly the one to take out of this. This class should not exist.
Yeah, and that's my point about, that I was kind of jokingly making about cancel culture, which is a form of vigilante justice. If you don't support mob justice in that way, which, is definitely not the ideal way to go about things, then you have to support some sort of actual accountability. And not just with regard to the Epstein class, but, going back to the Iraq war lies and to the financial crisis and nobody goes to prison and the just absolute impunity that elites seem to operate with. We haven't had that. So you don't be surprised then when people resort to mob online cancel culture and digital vigilante justice, because that's the only chance that they have of seeing any of these people held to account.
No, democracy or barbarism. No justice, no peace. These cliches exist for a reason.
Absolutely. No justice, no peace. Hold on. Hold on. I can give y'all one more. Hold on. But the likes ain't where they need to be. I'm going to tell you that now. I am ready to go. Thank you for the flowers. I greatly appreciate it. Let me see.
Observe.
Nobody gets a
which is
pass.
Participating in a lot of these. AIPAC and AI are both swamping House elections as we head into next week. Will be the first. Next Tuesday will be the first kind of primary of the 2026 season. To talk about that, we're going to be joined by two Davids, David Dayen and David Hogg. David Dayen is the executive editor of the American Prospect. David Hogg is the head of Leaders We Deserve, which is participating in a lot of these primaries around the country. Dayen, let's put a A2 up there just to because David, Dan, and I have been doing a bunch of reporting on the kind of secret AIPAC primary effort going on in Illinois, and we'll talk about that kind of on the back half of this program. We're also going to be joined by Nida Alam, who I interviewed. I pre-taped an interview yesterday with her. We'll attach that to the end of this project. So I want to start with actually Nida because it's an incredible case here. Let's start with you, David Hogg, because you guys have endorsed Nida Alam. So she ran in 2022 against Valerie Foushee. How do you say it, Foushee or Fouchier?
Foushee.
Yeah. Foushee. Okay. I've been doing Foushee. It's tough. So she ran against Foushee in 2022. More than $2 million of AIPAC money comes into that race, and a bunch of crypto money as well. I think from Sam Bankman-Fried.
Right.
And she wins the race, kind of close, but I think 9 points or something.
It was a 9-point
margin.
with a crowded field.
Since then, there's been a little redistricting, so it's actually a little bit more progressive. And my understanding is that if that 2022 race were run in this new district, she actually wins.
Mm-hmm.
So and also Foushee has done very little fundraising. I was checking it last night. I think she raised less than $550,000
I'm sorry,
for
this
this cycle,
is where
which
I'm
is
supposed to
for an
go. I'm
incumbent.
sorry, hold on.
She was outraised by Nida Alam, who just launched her race in December.
Yeah. I mean, Foushee is freaking out so much. I got a screenshotted text.
Name Epstein ever cross your desk?
Okay, y'all, we can't get the lights up.
Cross your desk?
Depends whether you mean my desk in government or my desk in private business since 2009.
Let's go with government first.
That's the one I can't talk about. But certainly in private business it did, and it was linked very strongly with Russia.
In what way?
In the sense that the whole Epstein files, as they're coming out, are showing the extensive connections between Epstein and Russia. And I would argue this goes right back to the 1970s. My sources in America tell me that the American government, the American intelligence services assessment was that Epstein was recruited as early as the 1970s by Russian organized crime figures in New York, and that his information was being used, his operational techniques were being used from that point onwards. So this scandal, this case, if you like, goes back decades.
So your information is that Epstein was indeed recruited to act on behalf of Russian mobsters or the Russian state?
Well, of course, the two are interlinked. Initially in New York, obviously offshore, it's Russian mobsters, but Russian mobsters were always umbilically linked to the Russian intelligence services. And that relationship actually has got a lot closer over time. One of the things Putin did when he came to office was effectively took over the FSB, the security service in Russia, took over organized crime as part of Putin's consolidation of state power in his hands. So this is one side or two sides of the same coin, basically.
Was this endeavour by Epstein and to an extent Maxwell done in order to gain compromat on senior figures within the British hierarchy, whether that's a senior government minister in Mandelson or a prince?
I believe this started, for what you're referring to, the Maxwell-Epstein relationship. I'm not sure. I would refer to Robert Maxwell as the key figure here in the past, not Ghislaine. I think Ghislaine met Epstein through Robert Maxwell. But I think Epstein was in business with Robert Maxwell in the late 1980s. And what they were doing at the time, ostensibly, was Maxwell was getting Jewish people, Soviet Jews, out of Russia into Israel. My sources tell me, both in America and independently, that the other side of that, the quid pro quo for it, was that they were laundering Soviet Communist Party hard currency into the West, and that Epstein was clearly recruited as part of that operation.
That's where Epstein, you say, got the money from to pay the flights, accommodation, transportation of Russian, potentially Russian young women.
Yes, what is quite curious is that my American contacts tell me that despite the fact that Epstein was incredibly rich and influential and omnipresent, if you like, in American high society, is he didn't actually do many big banking or financial deals. So the implication of that is that the money was coming from somewhere else, and I believe it was coming from the Soviet Union initially and then Russia.
Do you suspect, to what extent do you know, that included within Epstein's files, including on his computer somewhere, is severely damaging, incredibly embarrassing behavior by the current president of the United States?
I think it's quite likely, although I suspect that some of these files have been destroyed. One of the interesting aspects of this is that if the American security services knew that this was initially a Russian operation and was a continuing Russian operation over the years, why did they let it run so long? I find that mysterious. I think other intelligence services were also involved, the Israelis almost certainly.
In what way?
Well, in the sense that if you like, the modus operandi, the value of the compromat that was being gathered must have been so great that it was attractive to more than just the Russian intelligence services.
The Polish government say that they are investigating any links between Epstein and the Russian intelligence services. Prime Minister Tusk saying more and more leads, more and more information, and more commentary in the global press all relate to the suspicion that this unprecedented paedophilia scandal was co-organised by Russian intelligence services. Do you think the British government needs to do that, or, if we're honest, Christopher, have already done that investigation?
Well, I left government in 2009, so I can't say for sure. I think the Polish position has to be taken very seriously. Poland is a very good, if you like, assessor of Russia's intentions and Russia's operations. And if the Polish government and the Polish intelligence services think that the Russians were behind this, then I think we need to investigate that as well here, because they are good allies and they are reliable allies and they understand Russia as well as anybody.
Why, in theory, would an intelligence service allow this, let's say it is Russian-backed compromat creating web, to continue?
Well, obviously the Russians would want it to continue because they were gaining value from it.
Yes, but why would the British security services or the Americans?
The American security services baffle me because, as I say, the other thing that baffles me is the fact that clearly the Department of Justice in America had this material at its disposal for the last several years on Epstein. They don't seem to have shared that with British security services when the Mandelson appointment came up. And given that Mandelson was actually going to be ambassador to the US and would, in that role, also have access to sensitive US information, I find it baffling that that wasn't the case.
Do you think... to what extent do you think it is true that the Prime Minister would not have known about the extent of the relationship between Mandelson and Epstein?
I wouldn't like to comment on that. I can't because I haven't been in the system. I think that clearly it was known that Mandelson had a relationship with Epstein for many years. And in my view, that should have been enough to prevent him getting that particular job, which is a highly sensitive ambassadorial job.
And yet here is a potential Russian asset being invited to tea parties in Buckingham Palace by a senior member of the royal family.
Yeah, it's quite head-spinning, isn't it? I find it absolutely baffling that that wasn't also clamped down upon at the time, but I don't really want to comment further.
Appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on. Christopher Steele is former head of the MI6 Russia desk, director of Orbis Business Intelligence.
All right, joining us, Emma's Now senior Capitol Hill reporter and the host of Way Too Early, Ali Vitale, who is miraculously still awake up there in Chappaqua. Emma's Now political analyst and the Atlantic staff writer, Ashley Parker, and Emma's Now senior legal reporter, Lisa Rubin. Ali, you amaze me every single day, especially when you can stick around for as long as you have. Tell me, I mean, we're 2.5 hours in, and there was a pause because there was a leak of a photo. Explain why that is against the rules and why Hillary Clinton, the former Secretary of State, is trying to use that to say, open this thing up.
Open
we've
it
got
up.
the caffeine, and we're going to be here for as long as it takes, because there have been some twists and turns today. In theory, this was supposed to be a closed-door deposition, haggled over for several months, happening in large part because Congress was about to vote on a contempt of Congress referral that would have put the Clintons in different legal territory for defying a subpoena. That got pulled back because the Clintons ultimately agreed to do this deposition privately here in Chappaqua near their home. But the reason that things got gummed up just in the last hour or so is because Lauren Boebert, Republican congresswoman on the committee, apparently passed along a photo of Clinton behind closed doors during that deposition, doing nothing but testifying, but that is in defiance of the rules of this appearance. You see it there on the screen. That then, of course, started circulating. A Clinton spokesperson, Nick Merrill, came out to the cameras and said, we're putting this committee hearing on pause, this deposition on pause, because of that leak. Behind closed doors, then, I'm told by a source directly familiar that Clinton's lawyer and Clinton asked Comer to then let press be allowed into this deposition, sort of dovetails off of the way that she wanted this to be public in the first place. Comer conferred with an attorney, ultimately came back, said, no, we're not going to bring press in. And a Clinton attorney basically said, I need you to manage your members better because this is in defiance of the rules that we set. And I think that really does speak to the pretty adversarial tone that could be going on behind closed doors. Republicans, to my understanding, have finished their questioning. Democrats are doing their questioning now. And we'll see what we see when they start coming out of that room. Do we hear from anyone who can give us better light? But I think for those of us who have talked about the Clintons as a duo for so long, there are really stark differences, Katie, between what Hillary Clinton is expected to be asked about today, which are, frankly, there's a lot of questions about why she's here in the first place. Really, it seems to answer for her husband and information that he might have and relationships that he might have had with Epstein. And then, of course, that brings us to tomorrow's deposition with the former president, where I think there are questions that are valid to ask him about the relationship that he might have had with Epstein, with Maxwell, why he's featured in some of those photos that have been part of the Epstein estate and the DOJ files dumps that we've seen. And I think those are different questions. So as much as they have gone through this process, negotiating their depositions together, having a public posture on this together, there really are two separate figures in terms of what the committee could actually glean from them. And I think that's important for us to point out here.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So, Lisa, let's talk about how Clinton appears in the Epstein files. I mentioned up top that there are a lot of news articles about her run. That's the majority of it. She says she never believes she even met Jeffrey Epstein, but there was a relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell. What are the circumstances surrounding that relationship?
Ghislaine Maxwell, after she broke up with Jeffrey Epstein, had a long-standing romantic relationship with a man named Ted Waite. Ted Waite was a friend of both Clintons. He was a guest at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. It's in that capacity we understand that Ghislaine Maxwell then also attended Chelsea Clinton's wedding. And a photograph that has been seen many times over Ghislaine Maxwell on the aisle, seen in a photograph of Chelsea being walked down the aisle flanked by her parents on either side. So we understand that Ghislaine Maxwell was not invited to Chelsea Clinton's wedding in her own behalf, but was rather the plus one of a longstanding friend of the Clintons in 2010. However, there are some other things in the file that might be pertinent to ask Hillary Clinton about, if only so that she can exclude the possibility that she was aware of them. For example, now Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, in behavior that is sort of common to many Wall Street executives, appeared to have been playing both sides of the aisle in the 2016 election and invited Jeffrey Epstein to come to a fundraising reception for Hillary Rodham Clinton. It would be interesting to understand from Secretary Clinton's perspective, did she have any understanding who was invited? Did Jeffrey Epstein, in fact, come to that fundraising reception? My expectation is the answer is going to be no and no, but I also expect that members, particularly on the GOP side of the aisle, would ask her about that today.
So, Allie, you talked to Jim Comer, the chairman of House Oversight, about Howard Lutnick specifically. What did he say?
Well, I asked about Lutnick because Comer, before this deposition, was talking about the ways that getting the Clintons on a subpoena in the first place was done in bipartisan fashion, and that they are trying to do this investigation in a nonpartisan way. And I think in theory that might be true, except for the fact that when it comes to practice, politics is very much enmeshed in all of the actions of this committee. It extends to the way that obviously Democrats say, if you want to talk to former President Clinton, why are you also not wanting to talk to President Trump? He is mentioned multiple times in the files. There are serious questions about DOJ and the level of information that they've put out about allegations around the president. But it wasn't just Trump who I asked about, and I'll let you hear what I asked Comer and what he said. Watch. With the spirit of bipartisanship, would you then ask the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick to come testify? It seems like he has some information.
That's very possible, and I think I think it's a good possibility that his name will arise in some questioning today. We've already brought in Alex Acosta and Bill Barr for deposition. That's two Republicans in the Trump administration. So this isn't just about Democrats. We know that obviously Maxwell was a guest at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. There weren't many people that went to that wedding. So again, we're not accusing Hillary Clinton of wrongdoing.
And I have to tell you, Katie, I've actually asked Comer about bringing Lutnick in a few times in the past on Capitol Hill. Him saying today that's very possible is a change from the way he typically answers those questions. And it's one I can tell you Democrats are prepared to pounce on.
Yeah, let's talk about the other part of that soundbite, Ashley, and that is Jim Comer talking about how, well, we brought in Bill Barr, we brought in Alex Acosta. See, this is bipartisan, but these are former officials that Donald Trump's not even on good terms with. Bill Barr, didn't do Donald Trump's bidding in 2020 when he tried to overturn the results of the election. Alex Acosta got kicked out of the administration early on after the Epstein stuff got into the news all over again because of that sweetheart deal. Can he arguably say that they're being totally fair to everybody, politically speaking, involved in the Epstein files by just pointing out these two people?
No, those people's ties to the Epstein files are incredibly different than some of the other ties of people who were close personal friends with Jeffrey Epstein, Democrats and Republicans, who flew on his plane, who visited his island, who were in photos with young women. It's a very different type of Republican, out of the president's orbit, not on good terms with the president, and not featured in these problematic photos, not featured in these emails in this particular problematic type of way. That's not to say this.
Are y'all able to hear me? I mean, are y'all still here? I'm spinning on my end. Are y'all able to hear?
Our deal by Alex Acosta was not problematic, but it's just a very different side. And the reason Bill Clinton, for instance, is being asked to come in and testify is night and day from Bill Barr and Alex Acosta.
Yeah, the president's mentioned a whole lot, Lisa, in these files, and including, listen, being mentioned in the files, being photographed with Jeffrey Epstein, even being photographed with some of the girls, not necessarily criminal behavior, and obviously people involved have denied any criminal wrongdoing or any wrongdoing, period, other than maybe bad judgment. Not the president, though. He's never said that. In terms of bad judgment, he's denied criminal activity. But he's in a lot of photos, he's in a lot of videos. He was very chummy with him. And there's including one allegation, very serious allegation, against President Trump that was not even in the released documents, that somehow did not get released, even though by law they needed to get released. Wouldn't this committee, if they're trying to get answers, want to get to the bottom of that?
They should want to get to the bottom of that, and they should want to get to the bottom of any missing files. Katie, the documents that we understand to be missing were listed on an index of witness statements that cover more than 540 witnesses. If we think that this is the only person for whom witness statements are missing, either in the form of handwritten notes from an FBI interview or a memoranda from an FBI interview, I think we're deluding ourselves. We already can see that there are indicia of other missing documents. Now, do all of those people have allegations against the current president of the United States? Almost certainly no. But there is something deeply off about the fact that prior witness statements prepared for and compiled for Ghislaine Maxwell and her criminal defense, things that are directly within the wheelhouse of what's supposed to be produced in response to the act, would be missing. And it's troubling that these three documents in particular are missing. Witness credibility is not a basis for withholding documents under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. That's for the public to judge. And if the White House wants to mount that defense, let them do it.
But the fact that they've withheld these documents in and of itself suggests that they are not complying with the act, and not complying with the act in a way that is likely much more widespread than what we see with respect to this one particular Trump accuser.
Okay, y'all. I'll be back later. Hit the like button. Subscribe. What is this? Trump. Weirdest protest.
All right, joining us now, Lisa, thank you. Virginia Congressman James Walkinshaw. He's a member of the House Oversight Committee that is deposing Secretary Clinton. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us. Can you give us a sense, or can you give us what Hillary Clinton is currently being asked?
Well, I can't get into the specifics of
Hey,
the
Bryant.
deposition. I can say this.
Y'all, this is gonna be it. My lights are not up,
I don't
so
think it's been
this
a great
I
use
promise
of the
it's gonna be
committee's
it.
time.
I'll be back later.
We've confirmed what I think we already knew, which is that Secretary Clinton had no relationship with
Say that
Jeffrey
shit. Say
Epstein,
that
no
shit.
relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell, no knowledge of their crimes. And we've spent a lot of time today asking the same questions using different words, all confirming the same thing. She's not someone who has information that's valuable to our investigation.
So it's been 2.5 hours, again, approaching 3 hours. You're telling me that it's been the same 4 questions over and over again?
It's been a similar pattern of asking the same questions in different ways, again and again, related to, does she have a relationship with Epstein? She does not. Did she have a relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell? She does not. Does she have knowledge of the crimes? She does not. She laid all that out in her opening statement. I'm not sharing anything that wasn't included in that opening statement. Nothing that I've heard today has changed my perspective on that.
Do you get a sense, and I know you're constrained by the rules of the committee, even though those rules, by the way, were broken by Lauren Boebert, who gave a podcaster an image of the secretary testifying, according to that podcaster. I know you're constrained by rules, but can you tell me if a lot of the questioning centers around her husband?
I don't want to get into specific questions that have been asked. I will say this. From my perspective, the only person who should answer for President Clinton's actions or behavior is President Clinton. And to ask a spouse, any spouse, to answer for their spouse's actions or behavior, I just think is inappropriate. So there will be questions about that asked tomorrow, I'm sure, when we depose President Clinton.
What should happen to Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, who again gave that photo to the podcaster, according to the podcaster?
Well, look, it was really disappointing to see the rules and the agreement broken in that way. I think it unfortunately confirms the suspicion that a lot of us had that she laid all that out in her opening statement. I'm not sharing anything that wasn't included in that opening statement. Nothing that I've heard today has changed my perspective on that.
Do you get a sense, and I know you're constrained by the rules of the committee, even though those rules, by the way, were broken by Lauren Boebert, who gave a podcaster an image of the secretary testifying, according to that podcaster. I know you're constrained by rules, but can you tell me if a lot of the questioning centers around her husband?
I don't want to get into specific questions that have been asked. I will say this. From my perspective, the only person who should answer for President Clinton's actions or behavior is President Clinton. And to ask a spouse, any spouse, to answer for their spouse's actions or behavior, I just think is inappropriate. So there will be questions about that asked tomorrow, I'm sure, when we depose President Clinton.
What should happen to Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, who again gave that photo to the podcaster, according to the podcaster?
Well, look, it was really disappointing to see the rules and the agreement broken in that way. I think it unfortunately confirms the suspicion that a lot of us had that this deposition today of Secretary Clinton was more about embarrassing her, or perhaps scoring political points, than it was advancing what should be a bipartisan investigation into Jeffrey Epstein and his crimes to get transparency and accountability for the survivors. So Chairman Comer will have to decide what, if any, repercussions there are from that violation of the rules. But I think the damage is, once again, the credibility of the majority in this committee. That credibility has been damaged.
What was the secretary's reaction?
Well, I think
You're welcome.
understandably, the secretary was extraordinarily frustrated. You know, there was a painstaking agreement made in good faith around the rules. She had repeatedly and has repeatedly called for this conversation to take place in public, in the open, so the media and the world can see it, and there isn't selective leaking of information or of images. So she was extraordinarily frustrated, understandably.
Congressman Comer, the chair of the committee, says that they are being bipartisan. They've interviewed Bill Barr, they've interviewed Alex Acosta, two former members of Donald Trump's administration from the first time around. That Chairman Comer and the Republicans want to get to the bottom of this?
Well, I certainly hope that they do. Look, I think they feel constrained. They don't want to cross Donald Trump. And I think the question for all of us who are members of Congress here is, are we going to prioritize the survivors and victims that are calling for us to push for transparency and accountability, be Democrats or Republicans? Are you going to prioritize that, or are you going to prioritize Donald Trump not wanting to be incriminated or embarrassed? Given what we know about Howard Lutnick lying to the country, lying to his boss, Donald Trump, about his relationship with Epstein, he should be coming before the committee. Howard Lutnick should be coming before the committee. Donald Trump is in the thousands of times, including very...
Am I stuck? Okay, my phone is sticking. It's telling me it need to cool off, so it's paused.
Constrained. They don't want to cross Donald Trump. And I think the question for all of us who are members of Congress here is, are we going to prioritize the survivors and victims that are calling for us to push for transparency and accountability, whether individuals happen to be Democrats or Republicans? Are you going to prioritize that, or are you going to prioritize Donald Trump not wanting to be incriminated? Given what we know about Howard Lutnick lying to the country, lying to his boss, Donald Trump, about his relationship with Epstein, he should be coming before the committee. Howard Lutnick should be coming before the committee. Donald Trump is in the files tens of thousands of times, including very allegations with files that we now know have been removed or covered up. He should be coming before the committee to answer questions under oath. Democrats, Republicans, independents, it shouldn't matter.
If Democrats get control of the House, will you be subpoenaing the president?
Well, I think Chairman Comer has set a precedent here that not only do we subpoena former presidents, but if those former presidents don't show up at the time, date, place, and under the circumstances that we dictate, not only will we bring them in and ask them to testify under oath, that we'll threaten to put them in jail. That's the precedent that Chairman Comer set. I hope if Democrats are in the majority, we'll be less focused on putting folks in jail and more focused on getting the
probably,
truth,
what
getting
time
the
is
answers.
So is that a yes?
Probably about
I think that's
6.
very likely. Look, I hope that it happens now.
If they
There's
start
no
talking
reason that
about
President Trump
what
couldn't come
happened in here.
Testify under oath
8:30
voluntarily to the Oversight
for,
Committee. He doesn't have to be a former president to
Candace.
do it. Sitting presidents have testified before Congress and answered questions before Congress before. There's no reason he couldn't do
Probably
it now.
6
I
and
don't think he
8:30.
will, but there's no reason that he couldn't.